Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Raleigh County Commission's meeting of February 2nd. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any public comment? Whoops, we have two.
Everybody at once.
Good morning, John Elderman, Public Works. I have a short notice. Things just came around pretty quick the other day with some phone calls with the contractor. The bridge replacement project at Tabor Valley Road and Call Road is scheduled to begin Monday, February 6th. We got a window where we can get the contractor to come in and drive pile. If we didn't take them this time, it would be 2 or 3 more months before we can get them back. So check that the intersection at Tabor Valley and Call Road will be closed to through traffic during construction. We have put in temporary road shoe flies around the project so you can still get through to provide access during construction. We have about a 70-day project time and should be completed by April 10th, weather permitting. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Good morning. I just have a quick request for feedback. So I sent an email showing you kind of what the flag display looks like when it has that flag spreader in the back. You can kind of see it a little bit more. And I just noticed it in pictures and wondered if you would like me to proceed with changing that here. They will take up a little bit more room, and perhaps we can move maybe the recycling and something else to the side a little bit. But I think it would be a nicer way to display the flags. And it's pretty inexpensive. Just a little bar that goes across the back.
Yeah, I like the picture. I think it's great.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, good. I'll proceed, and hopefully by in the next week or two, we'll get them in and we'll have them displayed.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I see no other public comments, so we'll go forward to the commission comments, starting with Commissioner McKinley.
Monday evening, went to the Riley County Livestock Association annual meeting. Good meal and a chance to talk with the people I don't see very often, you know. And the program was talked by President Clinton, followed by a long question and answer with him. And every time I hear him, I'm more impressed. He brings up problems and what they're doing to resolve them, and people ask him pointed questions, and he didn't back away, step right in and answer them. I think I look forward to the job he's doing. I think we got the right guy there. And Tuesday I had a meeting with Rothwell Landscaping and John and Jerry about the Christmas lights in the county building. We can discuss it later. It's not going to work, I don't think. There's a lot of stuff that went into it that I hadn't considered. And then, of course, watched the basketball game Tuesday night. Wasn't the outcome we wanted, but we're still in good position in the conference and still a very good team. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Ford.
Yeah. Monday afternoon, I met with Amy Manges, Riley County Registered Deeds, chat about a few items, including staff, and some future things with the office. Both good, a couple maybe not so, have to work on, but it's all good. Some technology challenges as well, just some other related issues. Chatted for about an hour and a half, and definitely appreciated the dialogue particularly on a Monday afternoon when things are busy. So Monday evening, I too attended the Riley County Livestock Association annual meeting in State Pride at Park Hall. Dinner was prepared by the association. I wanted to mention that it wasn't catered or anything, and it was good, really good. We heard from the president of the chapter. Their lobbyist that is working in Topeka on important invested legislation with the organization. And then as Commissioner McKinley mentioned, we did hear from President Richard Litton. I think I've seen that presentation now, like I think that's the 4th time. And I was thinking to myself, you mentioned the job he's done, and I second that all the way. I've heard him 4 times, same presentation or not, is probably about 3 more times than I've heard either one of the last 2 presidents. So he's very, very hands-on and very engaged. And I think where we stand and where we need to go, that's a very, very important factor, and I certainly appreciate that. We did speak of course, within that presentation, the agricultural interests, not just what they're doing at the university, but also how it applies to the agricultural base, both locally and throughout the state, which I appreciated as well. So that also followed a live auction and a raffle, and had a lot of fun as I usually do, and appreciated the invite to attend. Tuesday afternoon, I met with Mike Bowler, Raleigh County Noxious Weed and Hazardous Waste Director, up at his office, discussed a multitude of topics, including staff and personnel, future needs of the operation and how that's going, budgeting on items with inflation and other constraints. They're actually doing a really, really good job kind of navigating through all that, for lack of a better term. And we discussed some things, just kind of from a historic and traditional perspective with the department. Had a really great and in-depth conversation, and I'm certainly glad to be able to have that. Tuesday night, I watched K-State game 2. Not a great game, but there's just even when they don't play well, even when you're in a place and a environment and atmosphere like Allen, it's a different team. It's not like they're going through the motions. I mean, they fight, they play, and they were there, they had their chances towards the end of that game too. I think our time at Allen Fieldhouse with this coach and coaching staff's coming, so I'm not too concerned about it. Just on a separate note though, ESPN Plus, it's horrible. Horrible.
Yeah.
I'd spell it out, but I don't think I need to. I mean, it buffered about 5 or 6 times. I know the game wasn't great, but paying $3 extra a month for just garbage. It's just garbage. I hope ESPN really thinks that through with the addition of the 4 new teams. We got to have a better product than that. The athletic departments, the athletic departments at the institutions need to step up and say something too, because we need a better product. We need a better product to watch conference athletics with the Big 12. It's ridiculous. That's my soapbox for the morning. I'll move on. Thursday morning, met with this morning, I guess I met with Russell Stuckey, EM Director and Fire Chief. Got some rural fire items, volunteer staff, the 2 new rural fire stations that will hopefully be coming on board this year, and talked a little bit about dispatch, and we're going to have that conversation here a little bit later. So appreciated his thoughts and observations, provide some extra insights that kind of need moving forward. And of course, good old groundhog saw a shadow this morning. Got thinking about that. You can't really blame the little guy. I mean, you got 15,000-20,000 people hooting and hollering and cheering, and then some dude reaches down and yanks you out of a hole from your slumber, and you're not supposed to want to see your shadow and go back to where you come from. Might need to rethink this whole concept.
It's no wonder
Really,
that guy got
at the
bit
end
that
of
year.
Huh?
It's no wonder that guy got bit that year.
I know. I know if I was groundhog, I'd bite him too. So I don't know how you can expect him not to see a shadow. I'm basing that on 6 weeks of extra winter. I mean, mid-March, our seasons are off anyway. So I'm not really going to blame the little guy, but maybe rethink that a little bit, maybe at least give the little guy a chance. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. I think I'm just going to end now while I'm still ahead.
I don't know if I can top that one. Monday night, I also attended the Livestock Association annual banquet. Their food is great. They cook their own steaks, and it was just really good and just a real filling meal. I did sit with Marvin Pegmeister, who's a runner, and introduced him to President Linton. And they had a great talk. Talk about running and Ahern and all that. So they even took a picture together. So that was kind of cool. And Marv was really excited. So he's a great person. Anyway, you've pretty much covered President Linton's remarks. And the auction held afterwards. I won another cup. Tried to give it away. So, anyway, Tuesday I had a doctor's appointment in the morning, and in the afternoon I met with Julie Gibbs at the health department. We discussed the upcoming events and meetings that I put on the calendar. She also told me about the governor's public health conference that's going to be held again this year in Manhattan, March 28th through the 30th. And then I watched the basketball game that evening too. You know, I finally just shut it off and walked the dog.
Wish I had a dog to walk during those.
Yeah, you could always come walk on. Wednesday, I attended the military relations luncheon at Hilton Garden Inn. Guest speaker was retired Lieutenant General Perry Wiggins, who is the executive director of the governor's military council. He spoke at length about veterans issues and the need to support work to keep them in Kansas after retirement. He talked about they're supporting a legislation at this, in the state legislature to eliminate property taxes for veterans. I don't know how well that's going to go over, but we'll see. Rich Jankovich also spoke briefly about the AUSA activities. Some of the upcoming events were talked about that includes a Fort Riley Spouses Club night. It's called Night at the Saloon, which is an annual fundraiser. It's going to be held on Saturday, February 25th. People were told to wear cowboy attire, so that sounds good. The military relations annual meeting is going to be held on Friday, February 17th from 5:45 to 10. And their next luncheon will be March 1st at the Holiday Inn at campus. Due to the length of the meeting that went over, I missed most of the meeting of the Heartland Works Board. I have all the paperwork. And I asked them to please send me the schedule for the next 3 meetings so I could schedule it in. So they did. I don't want to conflict, choose between one and the other. But later, I attended the Wesley Business Association meeting at the Dream Car Collection. We've got some new cars over there. Just gorgeous. Yeah. After their treasurer's report, a presentation was made by Lori from Big Lakes. She presented the 2023 events through next December, for which they're looking for sponsorships. It's their 50th anniversary this year, and we heard the presentation earlier, I think it was last week. She talked about the ongoing fundraiser to replace our roof, and of course, was fundraising of all the business owners. Other short presentations were made by various business representatives in the group, and all the attendees introduced themselves and gave brief updates on the company. The Crumb Beauty, the old Crumb Beauty shop is going to be financial advisors. Going to be in there, so they're redoing. That was kind of interesting. That's all I have.
Ready for the business commissioners?
Yeah.
First item is move to approve CIP project amendments on change order for open government amount of $10,175.
So move to amend the CIP OpenGov project.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the CIP OpenGov project amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair sign.
Here.
Yes.
Yes.
Next, I need a motion on portable communication device allowance form for John Harkness and Public Works.
Okay. I didn't actually get the actual form.
Really?
Mhm.
It was, the other commissioners, it was attached. It is a confidential form, but if you are, because it has his personal cell phone on it, number on it, so it's not open to the public, but it is, should be on yours.
It didn't say a name or anything. I didn't know if we were redoing the form, if it was for somebody.
It is, that's interesting. It is a change.
Okay.
So he previously had a $25, it's moving to a $65, and another person in a same position is flipping the other direction.
Oh.
And the reason is because they've changed locations, job duties, so the access to a tablet or a computer or any other way of communication at the location out at Waterfall is not there. And I guess if I'm speaking, go. Joe. Yeah, and we discussed, the justification for those, that's all on reimbursements, so.
Go ahead and move to approve the portable communication device allowance fund.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the portable communication device allowance form. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair sign. Next, Raleigh County Personnel Action Form, Donna Spillane, a new hire, appraiser 3 residential appraiser's office, and then Paula Gattaca, rehire MRC unit leader health department. All 3 signed, please.
Ended up going with the appraiser 3.
Right, now we have the other position that I think you're referring to that was listed as the 1 or the 2.
Right.
So that's a separate position, but this is the 3, and we are really excited about both of these new hires. They both come with really great experience. And Donna has extensive experience in appraisal, a little bit different, not at the county level, but her base knowledge is great. We're excited to get her on board, and her attention to detail and just the fact that she's so passionate about the industry. So it's gonna be nice. And then Paulina has worked for us. Really, she's been at contact producer, and then now she's still working at our location for KDHE. So we were excited to get her back on this side.
I was happy to see that.
Yeah, and as a bonus, she is bilingual, so working, in that way, it's gonna be a nice, it's been a really helpful app.
And commissioners, we got notified, Good Morning Manhattan is February 16th at 7:15 at the 4 Point Sheridan. Those are in person now. All the board want to go to that. They're in monthly now, remember?
Yeah,
Everyone want to go?
Yes.
Clancy?
I'm gonna pass, thank you.
Okay.
I might be lagging as I'll be coming back late from DC that night, but.
Okay. Commissioners have any changes to the minute?
I didn't know.
Okay, get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Riley County Commission meeting dated January 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
This one moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the February 6th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How the tentative agendas look, commissioners?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday is supposed to be capital day, whatever in Topeka.
8 to 2.
I'm just thinking with the current setup on that tentative agenda, it's not going to be worthwhile attending if we're going well into 11 o'clock.
No, we can't. By the time we get there, it'll be almost over.
I don't care either way. I'm just.
Yeah, it's either commissioners wanted, we could move the agenda items to the next couple meetings and the commissioners can attend that, or we can just have the commission meetings, whatever
I'm kind of
2 or more of you would like to do.
Kind of tempted to just stay with the tentative agenda at this point.
Or it's also one of those things that one commissioner wanted to go, we could still have the meeting, represent the county as well. So it's whatever you guys would like to do. So we'll keep it for now unless I hear differently.
Right.
Any items for next week's press conference? Okay, the next commissioner, you have Julie Gibbs at 9 o'clock with a few items. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I don't stand. I hear Julie's, but I did want to, it never crossed my mind for my presentation to be doing an entire agenda. It's actually 18 pages long for my request, but I just put the ones that I thought were relevant to the county that I thought was going to have some benefit from. So that's for our request later, and it was not in your packet.
Out of state travel request.
I just, yeah, it was so massive, it didn't cross my mind that you would want to see an entire agenda, so I did not attach it.
I heard a couple new terms today, the quiet quitting and I heard that one before. And
Oh, yeah.
And the career. Career.
But there's the
Career cushioning.
career cushioning. Oh, I don't know.
I have not heard that one.
Yeah, I just heard it.
Did you get a definition?
Not that.
Did you get a definition of that?
Terrifying.
Yeah, it was that, employees wanted to feel in their career, feel like they're advancing and
Oh,
they're, cushioning, I guess cushioning their job from future stuff, I guess. It was.
Well, I gotta tell you, I am gonna have to get in the camp with these two gentlemen, but these are all just terminology. It's just retention effort. It's just succession planning. It's just thinking about what you have in assets and putting in the right place. The new one I had heard, and I think I mentioned the other day, was the quiet hiring.
Quiet hiring, quiet hiring, quiet.
What's quiet hiring?
It's retention. It's being a good supervisor. What it is keeping the people that you have. So quietly saying, okay, hey, let's talk about your career. Let's talk about your future. Let's talk about what you're doing well, where you're doing poorly, where would you like to go?
Things that you probably
It's
do
being
already.
well, I hope so, but it's things that it's in HR we focus on for decades.
Yeah,
Keep the good people you have is really what quiet hiring is.
we haven't already coddled the younger generation enough, it's just gonna continue. While we're on the subject.
Now he's talking about a younger generation?
Yeah, it used to be job and good work.
No, I mean, I get bits and pieces of that, but I heard your entire speech yesterday. I could have sworn you were standing in front of me, the work-life balance thing.
Oh,
Oh, that's.
Now we're shifting to 410s.
I was gonna send you a text. I've got my little sticky note on my computer with your different terminology.
I literally had to just turn and kind of walk away.
What was that?
We're moving to 410s ourselves. Not real thrilled.
Oh, so that was at your work. Okay, that's where you taught. Okay.
No.
I wondered where you heard that.
It's gonna mess me up.
I was gonna say, you don't have another vote yet.
Not
You
here.
said that.
No, that's. No. It's just,
Okay.
Yeah, I wondered that too. How's that happen?
I don't, I
FYI.
I guess they've been discussing that for a while.
I'm
So they found the right time to just kind of insert it in there and kind of make it work.
No, it's okay. We'll put it in the
But
minutes.
it's not, it's,
I was thinking.
I bet you it doesn't last to the end of the year. A production-based environment that just doesn't work. So it's gotta, one of those two things will not balance with each other.
I think, I can't talk about the production-based environment, because I haven't spent enough time studying it. But I know there are places doing it, so, and honestly, I haven't read any about those, I don't know how they're doing it or what's doing, but.
You're gonna have to shift one or the other, or people are gonna have to work on Friday, and that defeats the purpose of doing it to begin with.
Well, unless people are already working on Saturday, then I mean, that's your overtime hours, it just depends, is everything shifting? I mean, and I'm,
Is
again,
your plant
talking
open on
concepts.
Saturdays and Sundays?
No,
Oh, well, then
well, during the summer, there was, yeah.
I
there
can
was some
see it working then.
Saturdays,
I
but-
think it might not work for, it's tougher for companies like my dad worked when he worked for Enron and all those natural gas plants are open, same as emergency
Yeah.
services, 365, 24/7. That's a little harder, but
Right, but they're doing it at the police force.
you can still do it. You just gotta hire additional staff to cover it sometimes.
Yeah.
or
I mean,
make
I don't know what
staff
the
spend.
consequence, right? Like the balance has to be there. But I don't think anything's impossible. Whether it's worth it or should happen, those are good conversations.
I think it's just a fad, that's what I think.
What, 510s? Or 410?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I mean, if the goal is to have a day off to do all the stuff you need to do and then have your weekend off, if everybody's got the same day off Friday.
I think,
I'm off on Friday. I need to come in and get tagged. I need to
that's
come in and do this and this,
I
but
think
we're
that's the
closed
only
on
part
Friday.
that people-
What are you gaining?
I think that's the only part that people look at, though. I think that's the thing. And I think the negative connotation for us to discuss is, oh, we're giving the dang government employees another day off. It's the same amount of work.
Exactly.
And guess what? I mean, we already provide that service. We have a prime example of a day where customers tell us when they want the service for their schedules. Every election, we're open from 7 to 7. When do people show up? It's their choice. No one's scheduled. We don't make anyone. They'll show up before work and after work
It's so interesting. I never
because they
thought
don't
of
have to
that.
take time off.
But how does that work if you vote on a Tuesday and you're working 10 hours and you go in at 7, you work till 5:30, 6 o'clock, depending on what a lunch schedule's like?
Well,
Do
people,
you have the time to go in on election day and really vote?
well, your employer can't deny you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's actually addressed in policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your employer can't deny you.
It's interesting, right? Because they could take time off work and still choose those later hours, you know?
They could.
And of
I-
course,
that's
they'd be
good too.
encouraged to vote in advance
Yeah, and that is.
or
true.
by mail.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. All of the HR community is not feeling like this is a fad. They're feeling like it's a trend, like it's something that is trending forward. And they've been talking about it for a long time. I think it's just similar to other things got pushed over the edge with the pandemic and people kind of reevaluated what they want. But I mean, other countries have had this more time off and been working around that for decades.
I'm still amazed at the number of people still working from home, and I'm even
Yeah.
talking some smaller businesses here in our community, even in the rural areas, some small business, I can tell you, the bank in particular,
Mhm.
where a lot of the staff are still working from home.
Yeah.
It's surprised me, and our state offices, how many staff at the state offices, their full-time positions are working from
And
home.
the feds.
Well, remote work is a
I know somebody that's work home and he's still there.
Mhm.
Just depends if
I
they
don't
find
think
out.
that's
it can be
accurate.
done.
What'd you say, John?
No, I have a hard time with some of the people that are working at home. You can't get hold of them.
Oh, I do too.
From my side, they're not getting enough done
I have a hard time with that too.
because they won't or can't, we can't get a hold of them. We need them to answer questions. We've had that problem with KDHE.
No, that's the biggest problem we have. A state person I tried to get a hold of yesterday. It's known that she works from home and she never answers her phone first time, and she'll eventually get back to you. And she prefers email, that way on their convenience, they can do it. And so,
Okay, but who's responsible for that? So the HR person here, I worked from home remotely and traveling for 5 years. Who is responsible if they're not doing their job?
the supervisor.
Right,
Mhm.
so KDHE is not managing. I mean, and I'm not saying that again, we have to do it, but that's like, we have to, take ownership.
No, that can be done, but you have to manage it.
Yeah, and I mean, we have that problem even if I'm.
For
sitting at the desk.
administrators, it creates more work.
Supervisors have to work, yeah, supervisors have to.
My wife works with them. They have time or something. There's something on it. They're not logged in, they're not.
That's
They're not
right.
being paid.
Yeah, my daughter's company, she works for Federal Trade Commission and she works remote. She goes to the office once a week, but they can log in and see what she's doing and what project she's working on, and they can, oversee and make sure she's there, regardless of, what time she works.
And I'm sure no one's developed a program yet to make it so your computer shows that you're not.
Well, that's what they were doing.
People think
at the
about
beginning of
things.
this. There were people counting keystrokes and
Yeah,
stuff. That was early, before, well before the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And boy, there was major pushback about that.
Yes, I don't think we can do that.
No, I mean, it just creates
Right.
another host of problems.
It does, and there's.
More management
issues,
problems.
Right, but in I know John has a big department, so I'm not asking him to keep track of every person in there, but like in my little realm, if the employee isn't getting something done, because day to day, we need that work done.
Sure.
We need those things done.
Yeah, I have a hard time having it been operated. This equipment from home.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's.
Oh, come on now.
Today's technology, it can probably be.
It could be done.
Yes, yeah,
They can plant an entire field without anyone in the
Yeah.
seat.
they can.
Have you seen that truck commercial for hands-off driving?
No.
It is frightening because it promotes, and I'm serious, I've seen it once. And it's, can't remember what company it is, but it's got the family, it's got all the occupants of the truck doing this.
Yeah.
And keeping their hands off as they pass vehicles and as they drive down the highway. And it's being presented as a great thing.
I did see that once also, now that you mention it.
That is not a good idea.
No.
Have you seen the AI cars? I've seen them when I was out in Vegas, and that just,
So like the Google cars, is that what you mean?
yeah,
like
they're
just-
just driving around, there's nobody in
no one
them.
It's the same
I-
thing, yeah.
That just takes a little bit to get used to.
I would like to see one.
I will tell you,
So interesting.
at the M Casino Resort, they also have it looks like something out of Star Wars. And it's a little robot that says security on it and it's roaming around
Oh, really?
outside. in the
That's it.
parking area.
What does it do? Just give you tickets? I mean.
I'm not sure. I didn't want to get
Yeah.
on the wrong side. So I just kind of left it alone.
You know, run chase it, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it had a taser on it.
Go out and try to break into different cars, see what it.
That would be a good experiment.
Okay, it's 9:00. It's time for Julie Gibbs.
Good. Make a motion that we recess as the Board of County Commission and reconvene as the Board of County Health.
No, second.
It's been moved and seconded to recess as the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene as the Board of Health. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
Good morning. Julie Gibbs with the Health Department here with three requests. My first one is an out-of-state travel request for Debbie Shaver, our communicable disease nurse. She would like to travel to the 340B Coalition Conference in March. Roughly $2,480 for registration and travel costs, and this will be covered through our IAP and family planning grants as we have budgeted for travel and continued education. The 340B drug pricing program is a federal program used by many safety net clinics and hospitals to purchase medications at prices. And without that, got it. Without that, we would not be able, a lot of our clients, patients would not be able to afford medications otherwise without this program. So by sending her to this conference, it'd be a great opportunity to expand our vendor selection for 340B drugs, as well as those vendors to offer group purchasing power for 340B drugs, drug covered entities. And by increasing this vendor pool, we'll be able to increase the likelihood of receiving sub 340B acquisition costs. That will improve our margins when billing third-party private payers, and we'd be better stewards of state funds when we can bill those third-party payers. Also, our current stable of vendors has had difficulty maintaining their stock of highly utilized drugs, which has impacted our ability to schedule some procedures. So by expanding that vendor pool, we can hopefully alleviate that problem and better serve our community. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have about Debbie attending this conference.
I don't have anything.
No, I think it looks like a good conference. Do we have to approve it separately?
Yeah, if you would please, since they're presented that way.
Where was it at again?
San Diego,
San Diego, California.
lucky Debbie.
Right? You think they would center that somewhere geographically speaking, but San Diego is always nice. I guess you can't lose there.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the Raleigh County Health Department clinic staff out-of-state travel request.
Second.
It's been seconded to approve the RCHD clinic staff out of state travel request. All in favor? Aye.
Chair sign.
That was.
Yep, they are.
My next item is another out-of-state travel request, this time for Asia Sampson. She's our part-time community health educator for our opioid prevention grant. She would like to attend the Prescription and Illicit Drug Summit. This will be in Atlanta, Georgia in April. The cost of this conference and travel would be roughly $2,049, entirely paid for through the COVID ELC funds, as there are a few sessions tied to the COVID pandemic, so we can use those ELC funds for this, which have to be spent by the end of July. So this conference has a lot of great sessions on prevention strategies, treatment opportunities in rural areas, prevention education tips when presenting to youth groups, educational campaigns, and many more. I know she's very excited about this, as she's the one who presented it to me, and I think she'll bring back a lot of valuable information for our community. So with that, I'll take any questions you have about this conference.
Did we get into other drugs at this conference besides the opioids?
Yeah, I don't know if I provided all of the, they have a packed agenda for 4 days. I don't know if I provided all of those to you. I believe if you go on their website, you can actually click on those items and see a summary of the of each breakout session. So yeah, there will be other drugs that will be presented as well. Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive, looks like a pretty comprehensive conference. So
It looks like it. Any questions?
And when I do send anyone to any conference, I ask them to come back with a presentation, a short presentation for us to show at our leadership meetings, just so that we know that they went to the conference. Then I have no doubt that they went to the conference, but so that I know that they learned something. Really, we try to implement some of those ideas as we can throughout the year.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Have a motion?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion to approve the Riley County Health Department Community Health Educator request for out-of-state travel.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the out-of-state travel for the community health educator. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair sign. It's two.
Hmm?
It's the second.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
20 days ahead.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's not good. Yeah, too many two. I didn't do that on the other ones, did
You did.
I? I did. Yeah, there's only two, so
My last item is a request to, forgot one word in that subject, to increase our interpreters' hours by 5 hours a week. This is our medical interpreter, Amelia Pascaliva. She is currently working 20 hours a week interpreting for the clinic and WIC services, and then now 15 hours a week she'll be spending at Irwin Army Hospital as our breastfeeding peer counselor. So we're asking to increase her interpreting hours by 5 hours a week, making her a full-time employee with that 25 plus the 15. According to her time study, she's definitely spending more time in the clinic. And after discussing this with Dr. Clark, our clinic supervisor, he has agreed that they could definitely use her at least 5 more hours in the clinic. Right now, they're having to call the language line quite often every week because she's just not able to spend as much time in the clinic. And that's not ideal. I know the patients would prefer to have her in person rather than have to call a language line, but we do have that available. We're currently paying her out of ELC COVID funds until the end of July. And we do have room within that, within those funds to be able to cover that cost of 5 hours, an extra 5 hours a week. And Elizabeth has provided those additional costs in this packet, which is $9,727 per year and an additional $4,863 for 2023. She is keeping that time study, so we'll know how much we'll need to come out of WIC's budget and the clinic's budget once we're done paying out of the ELC funds in the end of July of 2023. With that, I'll take any questions that you might have. I know this is
Does
a
the dollar
complicated-
figures just include salary or does that include benefits at the full-time level?
That's, but remember, she's part-time, regular part-time,
Right.
she's already getting benefits. So that addition, I mean, she already has a budgeted benefit based on her salary. It's a prorated amount because she only has 13 hours. So the additional is for the 5 hours of salary and benefit.
Okay.
So, you know, again, and I know it's a little bit confusing, but the total annual hours for this position, then what the request is would be 1,300. And that equates to an additional $9,727 annually than what you have previously approved. And as Julie said, she has funding for some of that through the 30th of this month, and then, I mean, she has a funding plan, but I want to make sure you understand that it is an addition. It changes the position.
Mhm.
Now, do you have the Spanish or the bilingual times posted at the health department? Where people would know when she's available?
So we schedule her appointments by appointment.
By appointment,
Yeah, so that
okay.
the clerks know when she's available, they have her schedules.
Okay,
But there's more requests for bilingual or
Yes.
Spanish speaking appointments than there is her time available.
Right, exactly.
so the 5 hours will help with that a lot.
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, got a few, but.
It's mainly on the form.
No, I just $13,000 for 5 extra hours. Well, I guess you have to consider one week. That's 20
Yeah,
hours.
it's 39.5% for
Yeah.
benefits, right? So that's part of the budget, right? So you can see, you know, her salary is the 2682. And I mean, that's what you're gonna need to take for someone who's not only bilingual, but bilingual in the medical setting.
Right.
So, you know, it's not the same situation. The terminology and the privacy and the medical part of that is a unique skill set. So being bilingual is unique in our community, educated bilingual, and also having that background. So that is our current rate of pay. That wouldn't change. But you take that and then you take that by the additional hours over a year. And again, I want to stress that Julie does have grant funding currently to pay for those hours. And at the same time, I want you to be aware that that would change this position moving forward until you change it again. So the consequence is potentially that she'll have grant funding into perpetuum because she will continue to work on that. But if she would not, you know, you would be saying this position is now a 25-hour position. And of course, you have the purview to change that back.
So this job description is still showing part-time. Do we need to change that?
No, ma'am, because she actually has 2 separate jobs. So
Okay.
she has taken, and it was something that we had to research very much because in many organizations, you can't have someone have 2 part-time jobs because of the benefit situation, but Riley County offers benefits to part-time. So she's able to have 2 separate jobs up to 40 hours a week. We have her time set up so that we're literally tracking because it's 2 separate salaries that she makes. And so her time that's goes to this job is at this and it's tracked as such and vice versa. And then if there would be overtime, which neither of these are supposed to have overtime, but if it would, we would have to then specifically say which job it was to. But no, she has 2 part-time jobs right now. And we talked about the merits of that, and benefits for the county versus the potential risk. And this is the way that they decided to move forward. And she's an excellent employee and she does a wonderful job. I mean, you know, moving forward, we would still want to keep those 2 separate positions. So.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have a motion to do this?
I'll move to approve the request to change the interpreter's hours by an additional 5 hours a week.
No second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Raleigh County Health Department's request to increase the interpreter's hours by 5 per week. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Elizabeth. Next, question, we have Michael Boulder.
2:20. It's so easy to put that extra two on there, two.
Okay.
Anybody this morning?
Yeah. Well, there's a. Okay, fine.
As long as I know this morning.
But.
There's no hurry, as long as I know this morning.
Yeah.
Make it as long as you like. But anytime this morning is fine.
And I'll make a motion that we recess as the Board of County Health and then reconvene as the Board of County Commission.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recess as the Board of County Health and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Anything else you would add? Okay. I thought it was important to direct it back to the tour.
Yeah.
Next section.
No.
Give us a slide.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Not make it, not just.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
You know. who's there.
Yeah.
It's time.
They're gonna get 100.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Morning, Commissioners. Mike Bowler with the noxious weed monthly update. We've got several areas that have been completed for tree trimming, including several large dead trees along the Anderson. I'm happy that those 4 elms that were pretty dead or down now. So if you happen to drive that stretch of road, that's an area you might notice those trees are finally down. So we're pretty happy about that. Oh, you did notice already. Okay, great. Yeah, it kind of stood out. They were almost petrified and standing there. So I'm glad that they're finally down. We started winter maintenance on our tractors and mowers, and our little sprayers are getting up there in age. We've stripped them down and put a fresh coat of paint on them this year. But we are looking at probably starting to replace our rental sprayers probably 1 a year. We did find a company here out of Wichita that puts a package together that's pretty nice. That 2 years ago they were $4,500 and now they're $6,500. But I will probably plan on looking at perhaps purchasing one of those a year for a while to get our rental sprayers updated. That's something that's very popular with the citizens of our community to rent out, and is really encouraged by the state to provide that service as well. And our other 4 sprayers are literally like 25, 30 years old. They're ancient. Some of them were actually hand built by my predecessors. So I'm glad that they're still holding together, but looking to replace a few of those. Our noxious weed report is being completed for approval, as well as our annual management plan. The annual report is essentially what we did last year, and our management plan is what we plan to do the years coming up. But I will present those here probably in the next couple of weeks in the form of an action item, that those are just reports required by the state and signed by commissioners. Our CWDAK conference for spring 2023 will be in the last week of February. This conference enables all applicators to earn their credits for certifications. It's what we do to keep our certifications going. And this year, the conference will be in Mulvane, and all Riley County applicators will be attending. And the week right after that will be our basic weed school, and that takes place in the first week in March. Will be held in Manhattan again. Scott March with the Kansas Department of Ag and myself conduct that school every year. It's a statutory requirement that every new weed director in the state attend. And so I've been part of that since the day after I graduated. So that will be coming up March. I'm happy to report that it does appear the cost of chemical, seed, and fertilizer has stabilized. Not to say it's gone down in cost, but we are not seeing the jumps that we did last year. So I'm pretty pleased about that. Having said that, I'm not confident there's not going to be shortages in some chemicals. I already know, and some of the larger toads that we at the county don't deal with, but the larger toads that farmers use are going to be a little more difficult to get, my understanding, in 2023. That some of the smaller scale 2.5 gallon jugs of chemical are going to be available totally. The next HHW collection for Howie's is Saturday, February 11th, 2023, from 8 to noon. Again, we don't accept business waste, and instead of saying no truckloads of waste, we're limiting those to 25 larger items. For the record, larger items don't include things like light bulbs, medications. We're talking about 5-gallon buckets of paint, that sort of thing. We need those to come out to the shop. We have limited space in our truck trailers, so we can't accept truck trailers and waste coming in. So we had to put that out, and then last month, our clean out, we didn't have kind of the problems we did the month before. So we're pretty pleased about that. I think the word's got out on that a little bit. We do have some latex paint out at the HHW. We just mixed up 3 big batches, so we've got several 5-gallon buckets of paint out there, and again, that is just wildly popular, and we are grateful for that, as we don't have to pay for the disposal. And the colors have been very popular, and I've got a lot of feedback that folks are just loving our paint out there, that it lasts and it's quality paint. So putting that out there, that we got some more out there on our show.
Might need to put a trademark on it and create an extra revenue source.
Yes, well, there have been 2 folks that redid their house, and had some friends that just loved the color and wanted us to rematch the color, and I'm like, it's whatever we mix it up, it's whatever we end up with. But
We're not Sherwin-Williams.
Yeah, but I thought maybe we should at least creatively name them, you know, HHW Sage or something. And then lastly, I am planning on attending the state board meeting there at the conference, although some things personally may interrupt that. So I'm not confident I'll be making a conference this year, but if I don't, I will certainly be sending a proxy, which would probably need to be a former president in my position during the state. So that would be probably Kim Glover from Atchison County would be attending in my absence. So with that, commissioners, any questions on the monthly update? Kind of a little bit of a slower month for us, just catching up on getting some equipment ready to go for the spring on the noxious weed side, but aging equipment, some of it, but I think we're ahead of it. And then I do have a date that we'll be opening our bids for our tractors in front of the commissioners here on March 9th. So hoping to get that new tractor, hope the availability, get it ordered, and then look probably to receive it in about a year or 2 more.
Have they started on your new building?
No, sir, they have not.
I know you said it was gonna be.
We haven't got the material delivered yet. I do have the second payment waiting. They require when the material's delivered, they require the check right then. And so I do have the second payment ready. The window of construction, though, was pretty wide for us to receive a pretty good discount. And we really would like to just get it ready for the spring if we could. And that's the window that they promised me from January. Construction would start from January clear up to May. But they have that entire window to get started with construction. So it could be any day. If it goes much longer, I don't hear anything for the delivery, I'll probably follow up with the company just to kind of get an idea where they're at. But we've prepped the area, we've got the equipment moved, we clearly have got the debris moved. And so we're ready for construction on our end. We've done everything we need to do to get ready for it. So we're excited to get that building in place. Yeah, very useful when we had it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, on your paint, you need to develop a cerise Celeste music color. You know?
Oh, that would be good.
There you go.
The question would we make it green where it shows it's alive, or would it be more of a brown color?
Well, I know your preferred color of that is brown. Next commissioner, you have Elizabeth at 9:30. Have a good weekend, Mike.
Thanks, sir.
Women got a good win last night.
I could, Iowa State's usually, it's been a,
They got that one horse, that Jones, it just goes unreal in Iowa State. They held her at bay to 17.
for years, even we've got really good teams. Iowa State's always been bad.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna lose it at the end, but they held on. I got to listen going home, the last part, on the radio, or else I normally don't pay attention closely, and so. I was afraid they were gonna lose it at the end, but
But said, I heard them talk about the, they had a bunch of free throw, they, I've seen the strength and foul and.
and Iowa State would come back with some shots, and then we'd have someone that get a layup or hit a three, and we kept answering. I kind of thought we were gonna falter, given, they've lost so many in a row, but how your psyche is, your confidence, but they held tough. The real difference too in the KU game was their bench is the 6th worst in the nation. And that night, their bench had the best production they'd had all year at like 18 points.
Yeah, because he said just 5 guys, but
Yeah.
and everything. They said once you get to the bench, you'll be good.
Because we held their stud at bay at 20, that's below his average, so. And our bench hasn't been producing like they were. I think they need to get Masood in more though. He's a good outside shooter. Teach the new guy how to make layups.
That's frustrating. That one, like I said, just slammed it off the back.
There's a couple of them that just
he was
banged
open
off.
and just,
Hit it so hard off the backboard, didn't even hit the rim.
yeah.
You're kidding me. You're right there. I mean, you're 7 foot tall. You can just lay it in.
Yeah, well, and then Johnson missed 2 dunks.
I know. I'm like, just do a layup. Just do a layup. How many dunks have you missed lately, Johnson? Just do a layup. How are the other Wildcats doing?
Not real good. A bubble team at this point in time. Had a pretty good win against Ole Miss the other night, though.
Did they?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Oh, just like on my farms, you see this here.
Oh,
Is it a 3? Is it a 6 or is it an 8?
that's the intent. You'll never know.
You said it good.
See that 8? Or is that a 73.95?
Well, as we all know, they don't teach math or writing very much at the University of Nebraska, so that's kind of how it goes.
It's like a 3.9, 1.39.
I didn't even go to UNL.
Oh.
I went to UT.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Ma'am, thank you. Good morning, Elizabeth Ward, Human Resources Director. I am here with an out-of-state travel request for Michelle and myself. I did provide you, I don't know, is this supposed to be on center about that? I did provide you a review of the agenda. It really is, it's the Society of Human Resources. It is their annual conference. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a almost overwhelming number of options. And so our intention is to pick those that would best benefit for Riley County. I have actually, a little old school, so I have actually already printed off the entire agenda and I will go through and highlight, and Michelle and I would go to opposite sessions of those, yeah. And so we would like to travel to this. It is in June. We did take an opportunity to save the county $400 each on the registration, because if we purchased the conference registration, which we could unregister, I guess, cancel registration for if that's the case. But by doing that before December of last year, we saved $400 each on the registration. So we went ahead and did that out of the clerk's funds. And this money is available in the clerk's funds. So we would just like to have the permission to be able to travel and go to it.
Of course, you're not telling us where you're actually going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly,
Mhm.
it's not that exciting of a place. It's Las Vegas. Actually, Clancy would disagree with me, right? I'd be okay if it were anywhere else. I mean, yeah, it'll be warm. I will like that. So I will like it. Yeah. So I will enjoy that. Yeah, they do always choose kind of like these flashy places.
Touristy.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, part of that's good because it's easy access, right? So then we know we can get a decent price hotel, we can fly in easily, that kind of stuff, but no, there's more than one flight, and you don't have to get,
Well, true.
to a smaller one, because that's, a lot of times those connections.
I didn't have a lot of luck flying in and out of McCarran International there, but that's just me.
Well, I haven't been to Vegas in, I don't want to say a very long time. Very long time.
Yeah, I know some of these travel requests aren't coming out of Manhattan this summer.
Oh, yeah, not this summer, right? I know, there's another, negative kind of,
It's coming out of which,
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at the flight net, so Kansas City would be the least expensive, but yes, we'll have to drive up there.
Of course, Kansas City's is opening up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 28th.
Good.
I've been seeing some pictures of,
Yeah, look pretty impressive.
yeah.
So do we have to do the separate too?
You can do them all in one. It's listed as one.
How many days is 5 nights?
Yeah, so the conference starts on Sunday afternoon and it goes through Wednesday at noon. And so we did budget for the 5 nights. We can get a flight. So what happened last year is I could have gotten a flight back Wednesday, but it would have cost more to get that flight to get here in time than staying in the hotel one extra night. So the balance, I mean, and Rich and I talked about it because I kind of like to get back and get in the office.
Well, and that was going to be my question with both of you gone for 5 days. How's that?
Well, yeah, so we would be gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday if we can't get the flight back. Yeah. But we already actually, prior to purchasing the registration, we coordinated the coverage. So every quarter, Michelle Adams and Daryl swap duties with us, and so that we have that cross training, and so that is going to be their week for payroll.
Okay.
And Elizabeth will be online, but it's kind of the point of our earlier discussion this week of the others cover a lot.
Yeah. I wish Mr. Bowler was here, but yeah, I am also very available at these conferences. So last year we had a little mini crisis in noxious weed while I was at the conference. We were able to handle it virtually.
Okay, so any other questions? Comments?
There it is. I'm gonna make a request to approve travel for the Society of Human Resources Annual Conference.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for travel request for Society of Human Resources Annual Conference for the Human Resources. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair
I
sign.
mentioned this last year, but the society.
Thank you very much.
They all walk around in Vegas like this.
Yeah, I don't know where they came up.
It's like some underground coal.
Uh-huh.
Well, you
That
know.
worries me. I'm gonna be gone for 5 days, maybe. What's the
one thing
mindset they do when you
gotta
come
wear
back?
tennis shoes. That last conference center was a mile long from one end to the other. I mean, and I like to walk, you know, but you got to hustle to get there between sessions.
You're not in hustling mode right now.
Yeah, well, we gotta get that worked
Yeah.
out. Thank you, Commissioner.
Next commission, you have Clancy Holman at 9:40.
Thank you, Ben. Did you pass those down? Yeah, I saw it. There's just one sheet. I was careful not to grab it. Goodbye.
Store back in here.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Oh. Oh, okay.
It's on my list.
When you got it.
So I really in here.
The other one's the health department.
Okay.
Which one did I just pass out? I've already forgotten.
Health Department.
Health department. Okay. Yeah. You'll be seeing the link.
Oh, okay, good, thanks.
Sure.
Ready, commissioners?
Yes, Clancy.
Morning, Commissioners. Clancy Holman, Riley County Council. I have two items of interest regarding legislative matters. The first is you've been asked by your local health department director to provide a letter of support for a to be heard request from the Kansas Local Association of Health Departments and health departments across the state. Request to the legislature next Tuesday, the 7th, during a budget hearing for KDHE. It's a request for a $1.4 million enhancement to the state general fund 2024. These are state dollars. Legislature controls them, obviously. And the reason for the request was set out in a letter from Julie Gibbs that you've also seen. She provided a separate letter that explains what she might do with such increased funding. So it's a good thing. It's not just, oh, there's more money. It was, here's how we might use it, which is a good thing. Your letter, the draft you have before you that I've given you to take a look at, of that written letter of support, actually refers back to Julie's letter. Doesn't say the same thing. I told her what I liked about her letter of support was it didn't just use the state template, because the committee is going to get probably 103 letters at least that read that way. And so to the extent you can distinguish something you're giving a very busy committee, I think you want to do it. And so your letter simply ties back and encourages them to read her letter. Anybody who's seriously considering it, I'm hoping will do so. But the point it makes is that this level of funding is going to help not just Riley County if there's an increase in funding. It also mentions that we have one of the few nationally accredited health departments in the state. I believe we were the first, if I recall. I'm not sure, but we certainly were one of the first to get
I
accredited.
don't think we're the first. We're one of the first.
Yeah, I think there's 4.
There's 3. Yeah, about 3 in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm an advocate.
One of the first. You're right. One of the first.
I'm actually a smell, but I would assume as an advocate, naturally, it must have been the first. Well, I left room for that. So, but it's important that I think they hear that and potentially decide that and we might be worth listening to on that ground. Yeah. I'll be handing you just momentarily a draft of a letter on a different legislative matter. And that is a letter of support for the Treasurers Association, Statewide Treasurers Association, House Bill 2148. What you're going to see is a draft that makes the point that the reason this board supports that treasurer's bill that they've tried for some number of years to get passed and almost made some progress last year, but then died in the session. Had to be reintroduced, I believe. I think it had to come back out because it had been out there for 2 years. But while it's a state function, motor vehicle registration and tagging, there's no question about that. Nobody can argue. That's the state's program. Their requirements that everyone must comply with. Every citizen has to comply with in order to lawfully register a tag a vehicle and maintain title to that vehicle. It's all state. Well, over time, that state function, the costs of it have been pushed over to counties across the state, not just us. I'm going to ask Commissioner Ford to pass these down for you all to look at the draft. Through there. Okay, I'll get you one.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Ask for enough copies. But this letter of support makes the point that it is a state function, which is never a bad thing to remind the legislature of. Makes the point that this bill is not perfect. It doesn't say that, but it's not going to eliminate local support, local property tax dollar support of this state function, which not just Riley County, but all counties do across the state, because those fees in the current statute that determines those fees for every treasurer across the state, they're not enough to meet the daily costs. Your letter makes the point that Shiloh and her staff work every day to do that, and they work hard to do that state function, and they make maximum use of the current fees. But there's still a gap between those real personnel and resource costs that every county has to do. And that's the reason why you're supporting this. So trying to be as diplomatic as possible in pointing out those things, but they need to hear it, and particularly new members of the legislature, because that's not obvious. There's no way. It's an unseen cost for most people. They don't realize, local taxpayers don't realize. I'd be willing to bet the vast majority of them that this state function is being funded by their property tax dollars. And to the level that it is. This reduces the current 2148 will reduce some of that for this county and other counties across the state. So that's the tenor of each of those letters of support. I do have time. If you want to make additions or changes to those, tell me what they are and I'll make them. And you can sign off on the letter today. We do need to have them done today if at all possible. So we can get them out there. This on the health department one, the Kansas Association of Local Health Departments, of course, is assembling a great big batch of these to present them all at once. Ours are going to go through our contract lobbyist because I've talked to him this week, and I think it's better to go ahead and use them to get it through to the committee. They can still make it part of the packet. He'll know how to do that and how to work with his fellow lobbyists for another group. They all know how to do that. So be glad to answer any questions you've got or to make any changes if you think.
I like the part where you give the legislature, we're doing this for you. Can you pay for it?
I tried to be somewhat silent, but I also tried.
Hey, yeah, smack them in the head with it. But. Exactly,
because that isn't going to persuade anybody. That was the goal. There's an interest. Counties have an interest in the tag legislation and also obviously on the funding of their local health departments, and it helps to remind them what local health departments do. Because unless you're one of their regular visitors, you don't have any idea. All right. Unless you have any other questions or anything you do want me to change on them, I'm going to go ahead and provide those to you for signature.
Clancy, is the one that goes to the Health and Environment Department, is that not a bill yet, or does it have to be?
Well, I didn't even bother to figure that out. We had a request from the department because they're having a hearing on their budget, so it's not really legislation.
Not really.
No,
It's a little different from what you normally weigh in on support of, and that's a great question. But it's probably equally important because it's the funding of a state agency, a giant state agency. It has an impact on your costs of your constituents.
I'm actually kind of surprised that's not in appropriations.
I don't know if you can try and figure out what committees are elected, because a lot of times, of course, it gets, as you know, it gets directed to committees by leadership, depending on what leadership wants to happen, whether that's work the bill, put it into that limbo where it never gets touched again until it dies, or where it goes to a committee where they know that will happen, or believe it will happen, or leadership believes that will happen.
Yeah,
Kind of one of the sinister aspects of the committee.
So based on strategy,
it is.
and health department's a hot topic issue.
Who knows? It is a little
You
surprising.
just got to keep in mind this discussion's happening in a non-exempt. So.
And that's a committee too.
Yeah.
One that is subject to the debt. All right. Thank you very much.
Next, Commissioners, you're in person at 10 o'clock. That's both of them in fund.
Both of them can be signed.
Get a motion.
Do we need to make a motion?
Yeah, if I could get a motion, Commissioners.
Do we need to make a motion on them separately?
You can do them both together if you like, or separately.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. Combined motion that we sign the letter of support for House Bill 2148 and written testimony in support of enhancement to the KDHE budget. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the letters of support for House Bill 2148 and the testimony in support of enhancement to the KDHE budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll take steps to get those up to the appropriate committee. I assumed written testimony is good enough on these. I personally think you ought to reserve verbal testimony. You got to be careful what you choose there.
That's just of one. Do you have originals of the other?
Yeah, I thought I gave those to you.
No, those are all on 2148.
Okay, I'll make sure you get the other ones too. Lost them in my paperwork. Okay, thank you.
I would probably, to answer your question, Fancy, I would probably say on the appropriations, that's going to be part of a larger discussion that we should just have to follow, because once it leaves here, it's gotta get attached to something in appropriations. So you probably need to follow that one way or the other. But
Morning.
They'll be locked on it.
and on the other,
All right.
I think when it makes it over to the Senate side, we should consider verbal testimony, because it seems the roadblock is in.
Okay. And that's on 2148.
Max House Bill
2148.
It's got a substitute on the House side.
Yeah, it's 90, I think.
You're right.
Sticks in my mind for some reason. Usually I don't remember the bill numbers. And we've got representation on committees at that one.
Correct.
So.
Roll call.
I just knew you were gonna come back with a sash.
Vivian, can I see you for a sec?
The sash is going to take place.
There, get, oh, that's gonna get right now.
Take one of them so they can get that separated from the other. Still help me remember to bring the right.
It was the health department.
Gotcha. I'm sure I brought it down.
Yeah, I assumed it was all, and I looked through them and there were 3 copies of 2148.
No, I'm glad you know.
I'd be sure since I knew you wanted them done today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
One's enough.
Oh, you just.
Need one.
Yeah.
Want to make sure you end up with what you need.
2148, 2148, yep.
Okay.
I want to be sure I didn't miss one.
Thanks.
Thank you. We have nice weather to get out to go see the game on Saturday. 50s. Mid-50s.
Yeah.
Makes a difference walking in and out of that stadium there.
Last game we went to, it was,
And we can just tuck in.
No problem.
it was 35 going in and 15 coming out. It was one of those nights when it came, like we looked, and, oh, it's not bad. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, my wife and I commented on that one, but you know, the one game we went to, it was really cold walking in. Well, it was cold that night, but it was so hot inside. It felt good walking out of there too. So inside, it took us that long to cool down.
Yeah, it does. It's road and everyone. Now they're packing the place full.
Yeah, it's amazing what a whole bunch of 98.6 is due to a rain.
Yeah.
Did you close the office down for?
Well, not the whole lot. I keep somebody in there.
Hey, ladies, doing? Good, good. That's the other one to sign.
Oh.
He has when he found us.
Yes, I see. Yes, they're right. Yeah.
How you doing? Hi, Danny.
Thanks.
How you doing? What'd you do wrong now, Melanie? What'd you do wrong now?
Are you sure there's still someone over there?
There is, I promise.
Okay.
There's several someone over there. Well, not you someone's.
Melanie and I go way back to even in the treasurer's office days when I was there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've got to be more careful who you hang out with.
Yeah.
You did.
So how many years ago was that? How many years ago was it?
Oh, it was when we built our house.
Uh-huh. Been about 32, 33 years ago.
93.
True.
Yeah. It was so nice.
Yeah. That's true.
Bad part is it accelerates.
What's so funny as kids grow up, you don't always know who their friends are and who they meet. Is her son and my son are actually pretty good friends and met in college, and so.
Mhm.
Her husband's another story.
We got time before the schedule.
I can make a motion to make extra time.
He's a retired Manhattan firefighter for the city still.
Yep. More dad jokes, just for moments like these.
We do. There's time to compile them.
Thanks.
She's watching.
Danny was here before all of us.
Yeah.
with the foundation of Riley County, I think.
You don't know the building, or is that what he said? Yeah.
Just about.
Clock watching.
The clock's a little behind. Okay, Anna Burson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Anna Burson, Riley County Appraiser's Office, and I'd like to start my staff update this morning with an employee recognition. I am proud to introduce Joetta Glessner. Joetta, I'm gonna come on up here. Joetta has worked in the Riley County Appraiser's Office for over 17 years. Joetta currently serves as an appraiser 3 and is responsible for training staff, reviewing sales, data collecting, new construction, setting values, and conducting appeals. In addition to her faithful service to the people of Riley County, Joetta also took on the challenge of completing the coursework, testing requirements, and satisfying hours and service requirements to earn a registered master appraiser designation. Joetta was awarded her RMA January 19, 2023, and she is now officially listed on the Kansas County Appraiser eligibility list. Riley County Appraiser's Office is committed to excellence in our service to the community, and we are proud to celebrate Joetta's accomplishments with you today. I would like to recognize Joetta's hard work, her high level of credibility and professionalism she's demonstrated in her career by presenting her with a certificate of appreciation on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and all the employees of Riley County. Congratulations, Joetta, and thank you for your continued service. Thank you. You know what's next?
Oh, yeah.
No one.
That's the part everyone looks forward to.
Yes.
I've just gotten used to it.
Thank you. I've worn you all down.
Right in the center.
Right here. Straight line right there. And right here, 1, 2, 3. And I take a few just to save. And have my both fingers. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can give a speech too if you'd like. No, we always give an opportunity.
All right, and now for the rest of my staff update, which I'll try to make it quick because there's quite a bit to go over. Staff, on the personal property side, staff are currently processing those returned renditions. We're currently sitting at 42% return rate, and hopefully more property owners will reach. They have until March 15th to return renditions and avoid penalties. The penalties are statutorily assessed at 5% per month, up to a total of 50%. Penalties cannot be reduced without the Board of Tax Appeals order. And we highly encourage property owners to return them as soon as possible. One of the things I just brought to share with you is the lovely, this is just kind of a mock-up of what we sent out. We highlighted, we made it as bold as possible for property owners to know, return required to avoid penalties. So we've done everything we can to just try to help property owners avoid excess penalties that aren't necessary if they can get it back to us. On all return mail, we're attempting to contact those owners by phone to update address information if we have a phone number for them. We're reaching out to property owners who did not sign the forms but sent them back or didn't include a bill of sale regarding the property that was marked as no longer being owned by them. Personal property appeals are not typical, but on occasion they do occur. And I do want to make you aware we have a payment under protest out of Ogden that includes 72 manufactured homes totaling over $4 million in appraised value. So this appeal is scheduled next week, and we will review everything and get the final results once that's completed. Watercraft trailer values are going up this year. We use Price Digest as recommended by the state. Heavy trucks and semis are also continuing to show a significant increase in value, again, using Price Digest. Effective January 1st, all personal property sold except mobile homes is eligible for those new proration rules.
A bill of sale is required and it must be turned into our office by December 20th to be eligible. On the agricultural side of things, just something I wanted to touch base on is historically ag questionnaires were mailed out every year. State statute requires use verification every 2 years. To reduce costs and improve processes, we've determined mailing once every 2 years is the best course of action. In 2023, producers will not receive a questionnaire. However, we are encouraging them to still continue reporting any change of use to our office like they would typically do. On the residential side, staff are currently setting the values for 2023. We're about 70% complete as of this last Friday. Our mail date is still scheduled and currently on schedule for the 24th of February. After those value notices are mailed, if property owners are considering an appeal and would like to see their comparable sales sheet or additional sales in their neighborhood, we encourage them to contact our office and we will provide the requested information. We've had a total of 82 payment under protests for 2022 valuation, and this does include both commercial and residential. 50 are completed, 32 are scheduled or in process. Summary of 2022 sales and building permits. We had 1,529 sales in 2022, of which 1,402 were residential. New permits total in 2022 were 418, 79 of those were new dwellings. The 2022-2023 mid-year statutory compliance report was sent out, and we have met all the statutory deadlines to date. In addition, we did receive notification from compliance that our 2022 residential ratio will meet statutory compliance requirements. We've conducted several interviews for the appraiser 3 position, and I am actually happy to announce that our new staff member will be starting on Monday. So we're very excited to be having to have that position filled. Commercial, currently the staff are setting values as well for 2023. They're at 92% complete. In addition, they're wrapping up their payment under protest. We've received several applications for that commercial appraiser 1/2 position, and we begin interviews the 13th, the week of the 13th. Hoping to have that position filled by the end of February. I've attached the commercial BOTA list as I have done in the past. There's no notable changes from the last update that I have. Just a little bit on the legislative reception hosted by KCAA in Topeka on Tuesday, January 24th. I attended that. I am on the legislative committee for KCAA. Steve and myself both attended in Topeka, and we personally invited our local legislators. And thanks to the help of Susan from the clerk's office, I got a nice updated list. Kenny Titus and Nathan Butler both stopped by before the Governor Kelly's State of the State address. We spoke with them on legislative issues that are facing potentially the appraisers across the state. And I think it's just important to touch base with you guys on some of those. The Kansas property tax system tends to come up regularly under fire. We iterated to legislators in attendance that we have one of the best property tax systems out there. And the statewide ratios show objectively the performance of the county appraisers across the state, dispelling claims of systematic hiring one way or another. The Council on State Taxation, in association with the International Property Tax Institute, graded the state of Kansas, Georgia, the province of British Columbia in Canada, and the province of New South Wales in Australia as having the best property tax systems in the world, based on transparency, consistency, and fairness in the June 2019 publication. And so we made sure to share that with the legislators. In addition, KSA 19430 was amended to require county appraisers have their education approved by KREAB. The Kansas Real Estate Appraisal Board, KREAB, and that began in 2022. We requested efforts to have legislation reverse this due to the many challenges this has presented. KREAB does not provide courses on personal property, assessment classification, property tax law, exemptions, ratio studies, etc., which are all necessary for county appraisers to be competent in these positions. So we brought that to their attention. Lastly, but certainly not least, it's come to our attention that there are efforts being made to make county appraiser an elected official. With what we are responsible for, this could prove disastrous to the appraisal process for multiple reasons. increased risk of appraisal bias, inequity, inability to remove from office, inability to provide oversight, overall eligibility, as there are professional requirements and residency requirements, and overall general politics. Appraisal is highly technical, requiring specialized knowledge, skills, and experience, and interjecting partisan politics and campaign promises in the process could prove irresponsible. So we were very communicative, all of the appraisers with all of their legislators. The legislators were very understanding of what we spoke about, listened, we provided them with additional documentation. And I just didn't want you to not be aware of some of those things that are kind of out there looming. So that is the update itself. One last thing, just a heads up, some things that have kind of come up. I spoke briefly on it, exemptions. Exemptions. So we're cleaning up processes. One of the things I can tell you is that if the ownership changes, if the legal description changes, I am requiring, because it's change of use, filing to the Board of Tax Appeals. This has kind of come up several times since I started. We've addressed some things as they have come up, but it's continuing to kind of come up. Just because it was granted the exemption initially, then they go and they build something else on the property. They have to explain to the board how that is being used for the purpose of the exemption.
Which board?
Board of Tax Appeals. Thank you, Clancy. I tried to be on top of that. The Board of Tax Appeals is the only one that has the authority to grant exemptions in the state of Kansas. And so they have to file that exemption application. I, as a county appraiser, will make a recommendation based on the facts that I know to be true. If I am not comfortable making a recommendation because of one thing or another, I'll document the why, and I will defer to the board to make the decision at that point. But I will look at the facts. I will do the research I can and need on my end before making a recommendation. There have been several that have been removed from exempt for 2023 and notified by letter that they need to file a new exemption and explain the use of the property. In case you hear about it or find out about it, I wanted you to be prepared. No surprises, but it would go before the Board of Tax Appeals for a final decision. So that is what I have for the update at this point. Is there any questions, comments, concerns?
Always concerned with legislatures and session.
Yes, always a concern from the legislators and session.
Clancy.
I do have one question.
Sure.
And
Yes.
has there been a bill? There isn't a bill yet. Is there that's been introduced on making the position elective?
I don't know that there's officially a bill. If I understood correctly, there's somebody that's at an upper level really pushing
Oh, it may
for
be.
it, but
I wasn't aware that there was one. I just wanted to ask the commissioners. And again, you'll have to review the bill if one gets introduced. Do you generally oppose the idea of the appraiser's office being elective or not? Again, you would have to review the bill if one gets introduced.
Now, this is how it's been explained to me by a fellow commissioner in Colorado, where I think that is an elected position. And in their particular county, and I don't know the county's name, they had an 18-year-old kid who hadn't even graduated high school yet run for the position. Granted, there's certifications and everything that you're supposed to get. Doesn't disqualify you from running still, because it is an elected position. He won. And they spent well over $1 million in just training costs to hopefully avoid lawsuits and other things that are attached to that. So it has complications for sure. So,
one of the things that was kind of mentioned about, was kind of brought up is, and I can't speak to the legalities of it, but there are certain jurisdictional type things that can happen. Something about how our sheriff is different than most other counties. There's I think some jurisdictional type exceptions or I don't know what, I can't speak to the official term.
It's going to depend on how any such bill reads if it
Yes,
comes up.
that's the
But I
big
mean, you hit
piece.
the things that seem most obvious as a practical matter. Not, it doesn't take any real deep analysis to see there could be some potential issues. But I just want to get a feel if the board, if you have any kind of leanings one way or the other, just because these things pop up quickly. And it just helps us take the appropriate position by getting you the information you need and making sure that the board gets a chance to weigh in. This is one I think you're going to want to, if it comes up in the form of legislation.
Yeah. I have to see the legislation.
No, I know, I realize that. I preface that.
It doesn't sound like a good idea.
Well, that's all I'm after. It's
And these
just the
particular
concept.
positions are partisan positions because they're extension of state. So that adds a whole nother, I'll say, dynamic to it and leave it at that. But and that would be treated just like all the other elected positions. For Leander versus Lincoln, 2003.
Come on, there's enough. You got the title. Don't pass me on the year. I think it's older.
He's showing off.
Yeah.
I think it's older.
Ed, do you know of any outside group that's pursuing this in various states?
I can't speak to, there are some other states in some of the information that we provided to the legislators that have problems with it because they're elected.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't speak to any specifics.
Yes.
The real issue that's about that position being elected is the same reason why Board of County Commissioners used to be involved in the appeal process decades ago. And that authority was taken away because a prominent business person that may have funded your campaign is going to be before you and want their value appealed, which of course isn't related to the tax bill they're getting. And so there was pressure on elected officials. So that's why that authority got taken away from the Board of County Commissioners, because they didn't want elected officials making those compromising decisions based on remaining in office. And so that is really the biggest downfall, not the education part so much, because you could say that about any elected official, including county commissioners. There's no educational requirement. You can get an 18. So, people can learn things. So the biggest thing against it is pressure on being an elected official to change something.
My next
Okay.
item, are we ready for my next item? Sorry, you haven't done with me quite yet. All right. Up next, the request for out-of-state travel to the IWO conference in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm requesting permission for myself and two staff to attend the 2023 International Association of Associate Officers Conference and Workshop in Salt Lake City, Utah, August 26th through August 31st. This annual conference includes the accredited workshops, continuing education requirements that support our designations through IWO. The conference is packed full of presentations, demonstrations, and processes and procedures from around the world, provides a forum for discussion with leaders and colleagues, and provides access to vendors of various appraisal products, services, and the latest tech. The costs noted are estimated, as registration, booking hotels and flights is not available until later in the year. But these expenses have already been budgeted for the appraisals 2023 budget. And my recommendation would be the approval for the out-of-state travel for myself, Steve Shirley, and Melanie. Melanie will be driving her own personal vehicle, and it is noted the reimbursement would not exceed the cost of the fare, the normal flight ticket.
Refresh my memory. We usually send three historically, right? Yeah.
Yeah, historically, it's my understanding all that had their designation had the opportunity to go. It was up to them, and I've told staff that 3 is reasonable, and we will decide on a yearly basis what would meet the needs of our office.
That is what's been done in the past.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Any questions? Discussion?
No. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for the IAAO conference in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Now second.
So moved and seconded to approve the out-of-state travel to the IAAO conference in Salt Lake City for 3 members and the county appraiser.
3 total.
3 total
3 total.
to Salt Lake City. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Hi, Corey.
All right. Morning, Commissioner Nichols.
Morning.
Oh, David,
Good, how are you?
not bad.
Feeling all right?
Huh?
Feeling okay?
Oh, you know, not 100% yet, but
Right.
I'm kicking, so that's positive. How's RCPD doing? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh.
Oh, hey. Yeah. They just get back. You're available tomorrow morning, 8:30. Should they? California, 8:30 time, signaling you guys. We can go and visit with her, and I sent her that AT&T response, a couple of those, just to get some explanation, understanding, yeah, so. She did ask, is there any other available in that kind of whatsoever that we need, just so we can make sure that it's not something that I should, yeah. So. Yeah, and then AT&T was around what's on about the higher team there for 9 runs, guys, and how they project.
Yeah.
I'm new to all that stuff, so.
At some point, we'd have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
They do all of those, so there's a team that actually owns it. And so. I think they're all based in just a girl or there's a couple of them, but they go. And service all these awards, posted. PSAPs.
Getting around this head is flu.
Just.
I don't have it now. I'm not gonna be identified as the one who gave it to somebody.
Maybe that's why I should.
If you get it now, David gave it to you.
Anything. Oh, that's.
Can I say, David? Yeah. You've noticed that?
Doesn't take long to figure that out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. That'll be the day.
If I had a heart in face on.
But you don't do really, but wireless.
I guess.
But my last one was.
You got a little excited.
The new one. Okay, so. You have a good thought. First one. I think she makes every thought. I don't go for that.
I got a little over. Oh, good.
Same one. Featuring, and I put a vitamin water with it.
Yeah, no, I would say that, but. She did. Just like. She brought a little.
Amanda.
Working online.
Good.
And then it was not.
And like after seeing you in a while, you've been hiding well.
Probably not.
Yeah,
In the Senate. We'll have a, according to Tom, should have a number and a date. Are you okay with what I suggest? Trying to get at it. Tom tells me for some reason.
Chair. Yes, yeah. I called Bob Cobb, this is Crawford County Sales. Introduced me to explain to him, this is how we're going about it. You might think about doing something similar.
Well, I need to contact the county councilor, so we're going to talk to him probably today.
Okay.
Tell him where it is and we're going to wait.
Okay. And then you might tell them that we chatted and I've had contact with.
I'll make sure that
Commissioners, I just told John that nuisance abatement bill has been introduced to the Senate. It's been introduced to the Senate.
What?
The nuisance abatement bill. Sorry, I'm still in a weakened condition. Got to make use of that one. No numbers assigned yet. Another day or so according to us. But so.
I'm sitting there.
How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good.
Good.
Oh, no.
I do not.
I was not coming. He's
got the Zoom link and he was down this morning.
I talked to Derek and he said he'd sent that.
Yeah. I said to Kyle and asked for acknowledgement and he sent it and said, I'll see you at 10:30 online. Good.
I've got a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Josh,
How are you doing?
all right, hiding back here in the corner.
Trying to keep
At least you're not faced the other way.
Don's team again, so. Babysitting John.
Hey, Mr. Coleman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Clancy Holman, Riley County Counselor. Just to get this thing started, this is a commission agenda report because you've had contact from members of the county's design committee for the public safety headquarters building that it's time to let the architect know, the architect who's been working on the design of that facility, what amount of space should be included in that building for the potential, and I emphasize potential, move of consolidated dispatch, which currently resides at the law enforcement agency of the Raleigh County Police Department, from that location to the public safety headquarters building. This is not intended to be not presented as any kind of argument for or against that. It's simply to have that discussion because as a common sense matter, as the car indicates, the architect of the building just needs to know what's the maximum amount of space that needs to be in that building, what needs to be designed in there for whatever use is eventually made. If it's too late to do it later on, as I said before, even as a liberal arts major, I can understand that concept. It'll be too late once the building's built. So that's the purpose of this, and for you to discuss it among the board members themselves. And I see our architect is on, and to ask questions if anyone that you see fit to ask questions of, call them up to the podium, get any information you want, and to arrive at some sort of decision regarding that space today, or if the board decided to make that decision later, just so I can see if Kyle's paying attention. So there you have it.
Okay, well, as Councilor Coleman said, we are in discussion among the commissioners here if this is the route we want to go. There are members from the design committee, from the architect, from the RCPD, fire department. I see EMS is here also. Part of the design committee. If you want to speak to the question, you need to state your name, who you're from, and be recognized by the chair. So at this point, I want to open it up to the discussion by the commissioners.
I have a question. Are we looking? It's my understanding. Well, I don't understand it. I guess we're not necessarily looking at moving it right now, but I assume they're saying there'd have to be something. I guess this is a question for Kyle. There's something they'd have to do to make the basement work for a future one, but not change its use right now. It'd still be used as training room down there, but just I assume extra power and internet connections or whatever the phone connections are required for the dispatch. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, I think, it's pretty open. That space, I believe they said was for like 3 dispatch people, which if we do this, we have to have a lot more space than that, or maybe in a different location. So,
in a different location.
If I give a little bit of background on how this all got started with the committee, I think it'd help, especially with the new director.
Okay. Rich Fargo is recognized from the design committee.
Good morning, commissioners. We had a meeting early on with Kyle Morrison in attendance, and everyone that's listed on the design committee at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners early on in this process, our very first meeting. And it was a discussion about what should all be included in this facility for all emergency services. The commission directed staff to have that meeting and talk about having Mr. Morrison with Arch Images design it potentially with centralized dispatch in mind. This came from originally all the directors of emergency services. We're all well aware RCPD has never been on board with that. And it was presented very clearly by Captain Kyle that RCPD did not support it. But what I reminded Mr. Kyle at that time is that this was at the Board of County Commissioners. The county commissioners wanted it to be analyzed and discussed, and we actually hired at an additional cost an outside consultant to evaluate the need for this. And the intent at that time in the discussion was, is it better to have dispatch now located in a central location, still administered by RCPD? No one has ever mentioned taking dispatch authority away from RCPD, but to have better quarters, because as I talked to, I believe, Kurt, and I know Josh Kyle at the time, the last two directors, and I'm not referring to the interim director, but the last two directors have been before this board in many public settings saying we're having trouble keeping dispatch people. The location where it's at is not conducive to a positive work environment. They need better facilities. They need more room. They need more dispatch people as part of retention of employees. And so this was thrown out as a possible solution. Correct me if I'm wrong, you other emergency management directors, but I believe all of the rest of the emergency management directors are in favor of a centralized dispatch. And so we've had these discussions going back and forth, and RCPD's been very vocal in being opposed to it. And the commission has heard that. And so until this point in time, no decision has been made to include that. Right now, there's, I think, space for 3, David, is that correct? And Kyle? For 3, which is not enough space for full centralized dispatch. From the county staff's perspective, I'm not an expert in dispatch for emergency services at all. That's why we took it based on the recommendation of all the directors and brought it before the board, because we thought this was an opportunity to potentially have a state-of-the-art, up-to-date space for centralized dispatch, possibly alleviate a little space concerns at the current administrative facility at no additional ad valorem tax costs to our taxpayers. This will be done with federal funding, one-time federal funding our community gets. We have the funding available to do that. So that's why it was all brought forth at this time. It is not my decision on what's the best way to go. We do know that it is done in other communities, centralized dispatch. And sometimes not even administered by the police department. No one's talking about changing who administers it. Just talking about a location for better facilities and a better opportunity possibly for our community. And so that's what's gotten it here. The original intent is kind of like the addition of the 3rd floor. You know, I'm only a proponent of the 3rd floor if we have a use for it. I'm not a big proponent of the 3rd floor if you're just going to build an empty shell. Same thing with this dispatch. I'm not a real big proponent of spending that extra money if your intent is not to put it there. So you can build the space, but if you really don't intend on putting it there, why spend that money? Leave it as training space. So that's kind of what's gotten us to this point. I just wanted everyone to be on the same page on that. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Rich.
Hey, Rich, will you check and see if Kyle can we hear him?
Can you touch the Kyle?
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that he was having a little technical difficulty to start with. So.
Yeah, I would like to hear from either Russell or David about, what happens in case of a large emergency. Is there enough space to handle the people there, or what you feel about this issue? One of you or
David Adams, EMS Ambulance Director. Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll give you a little bit of back where I've been throughout all this, because I've been all over the place, and I'll admit it, right? So my initial question when we started this a year ago was, is there enough space at RCPD for dispatch now and in the future? That was my initial question. And the architect or the consultants have kind of given us that answer. So then it became, do we move dispatch out of RCPD and put them in this facility that is new, state of the art? Do we leave them where they're at? And I've been back and forth on this, but as we've had conversations ad nauseum, and I've had conversations with 30 different people over this. And where I have ended is that I don't work for RCPD. I know more than most people do, but I don't know near as much about their operations as they do. And when they have been so passionate about why it needs to stay with them, and these are people I've worked with my entire career, I have really taken the stance of, that's not my decision. I get that. I get it. So in an emergency, if you're talking a catastrophic emergency, once a career type of situation, then it would be helpful if dispatch and the EOC work together. So because that's a long drawn out process. If we're talking about the short term, we have a tornado warning in the county and we've opened up the EOC, it would be helpful to have one person over there. So in that backup piece up, just one person who can kind of help us with dispatch. They can see everything that's going on their screens. They can see who's calling, what their issues are. So if we're talking about that, which is much more frequent, then I think it could be done with a backup PSAP. I think we would be able to do it. Technology these days allows for a whole lot more than what we had 3 years ago. So that's where I'm at. In a large scale, oh my gosh, worst case scenario, it would be helpful to have everybody in the same room. But for what we see on a day-to-day basis or a year-to-year, really, with the tornado warnings, I think one person could do it. So, and you could put something in place. There could be a policy in place to where, okay, if we open up the EOC, we need to open up the dispatch side and have a dispatcher there to kind of help liaison us with dispatch at RCPD, who are dealing with the officers and boots on the ground. From that perspective, I think you could do that as well. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. Russell Stuckey.
Russell Stuckey, Emergency Management County Fire. As I've talked to you before, David and Scott and I, we've talked about it. Scott French, Manhattan Fire Chief. Right now, there's nothing broken. Dispatch works great. If we get great service, Tyler's wonderful to work with. We don't have any complaints about that. To me, the biggest question is the space and future space. If the commission thinks they're going to want dispatch in a different location, there's not currently enough room designed in this building for that. The backup space right now is approximately the same floor space that dispatch has for their dispatcher stations. There's no provisions for like a locker room. There's no provisions for supervisor offices. There's none of that in the current space, and it would not be enlarging their space at all as far as the dispatcher floor for what they have now. So that's really the biggest question. But right now, as far as the service we're getting and the relationship we have with dispatch, none of us have any plans on that.
Either you have one question about it?
Appreciate that, David and Russell. But the conversation doesn't entirely just boil around what we're doing currently. It also has to have a component of what we're going to do for the future. We're building a new facility. The hope is that's going to be there for a very, very long time. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say past all of our lifetime sitting in this room. So I guess my question in return is, got you on the front end, got you in the present. What are we looking at? What's the trend? What's the need? What's the necessity 5 years down the road, 8 years down the road, 20 years down the road? And do we facilitate that now while we have the opportunity with non-ad valorem dollars and a new facility to do that?
So the trend around the state is to have dispatch centers as more independent agencies. People get tired of either whether it's under the sheriff or the emergency manager or whoever dispatches under that one person. And there is a trend where dispatch around the state has gone to an independent agency, and then it's either governed by a board of the emergency services directors that utilize that dispatch center or directly reports to the county commission. That is a trend around the state. And so that could be something that might be needed 10 years from now. I don't know.
Cool.
And I see that, I hear and see that same trend growing too, and it's hard pressed for me to think that with the Flint Hills region that couldn't, maybe shouldn't be a vision.
Yeah, we're growing a lot as a county and this region.
That's why I think it has to be at least a consideration at this point. That's my thought. Cost, design, several of those other factors that maybe work out before making a complete and final decision, obviously. But I'm also with Rich. I go back and forth on the shell. And there's so many different space and usage needs for the county as a whole, all independent agencies. We'll let an empty shell and just leaving it there for nothing, at least short term, temporarily, just to me, just doesn't make sense given the dynamics of something. And if we really truly have the intent of public safety in mind, which I hope that's what we do, something there has to be incorporated into it.
What about we have now the dispatching basement, or having a basement. Has it been determined that we can do a basement in that location, Kyle?
Yes, I believe it can.
Would that require the need for the, I guess, third floor, the shell that we've been discussing to properly move the other components around?
No, as we're envisioning it, it just kind of drops the whole thing into the ground, if you will. So that third floor becomes a second floor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, David?
If I may, I just wanted to remind you that regardless of the dispatch discussion, as the building is designed today, without that shell floor, this building is 90 to 95% full when we move in. So I ask that you keep that in mind as well. So as we talk about that shell and in that empty space.
So what are you going to use it for immediately then?
Immediately, we may use it for training space, whether it's our department, emergency management, RCPD. I think we will find things to use it. But the building is full. And we're going to be right back where we are in 5 years or 10 years, saying we hope that shell floors for any number of things.
If I may ask a question that might further complicate this, but I'd suggest that you also consider the existing EMS building in your thinking. And part of the reason that I'm curious about it right now is parking. How much parking does it need in the future? And can I use some of the parking lot for our needs for this new building?
I believe the answer is yes. The existing building, we've talked about using it just for storage space. So there won't be any needs for parking really else for that. So maybe just 2 or 3 stalls. But I think to answer Kyle's question, yes, that can be used for parking if needed.
And that's part of the consideration if you want it to be space for a full-time dispatch center. You know, Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong, but I estimate there'd be another 12 or 13 parking spots that we need in between the people working the day shift and supervisors, and then the shift change, 4 or 5 more coming in. So that's, that's my other concern is this building lot is really small. And so if we have to expand the building by another 10 foot to accommodate additional dispatch space and then 12 more parking spaces, I'm pretty sure we absolutely have to have the parking across the street maintained in the current fashion.
But if we do the shell, we don't necessarily need to expand the building. Is that correct?
No, that not really, because the dispatch, the idea of the dispatch, when that was originally on the backup dispatch on the first floor, they were going to harden it and make it a stronger building. And so by being in the basement, it's going to have a bunkerized kind of feel to it. And in theory, if the top floor, 2 floors are damaged severely, that bottom floor would still function. So we would need that dispatch space to be in that bunkerized area.
Okay, so that would necessitate 10 more feet.
That, I mean, and I'm just throwing that number out. I haven't talked to Kyle if 10 foot would catch it, but in my mind, we would have to expand the footprint a little bit. Kyle can obviously speak to that better than I.
Well, Kyle, my question, because they said you need to know now what if it's not going to be a full dispatch now, but it could be in the future, what needs to be done now to allow for that?
So we currently have room for 3 workstations, a little bit of storage, and a server closet. And that's considering it as a backup site. So there would be 3 consoles there for dispatchers, and they can be kept ready to go. If the PSAP is moving over, then we need more consoles, the supervisor office, and we need to talk about break room and locker rooms and things like that. I think it adds, and then as we mentioned, it adds parking as well, which is perhaps the bigger challenge than the square feet on the building from a design standpoint. I think it adds a little over 1,000 square feet to the building. Something on that order, 1,100 square feet. And of course, then we got to decide whether the technology is, my understanding is the dispatch systems, the technology that they have isn't real old. So I'm not sure if it can be moved, if it makes sense to move it, or if you get into the whole expense of replacing it with new equipment. That's a big ticket item that would have to be discussed. That's kind of what's involved. And of course, right now our footprint fits the basement and the first floor the same size, and in doing this, we're making the basement a little bit bigger. So we need to look at just how we juggle space to make it all fit together.
Well, my thoughts, if you did, we're not moving dispatch right now, we're just saying it's future. Why wouldn't you just move it, just reconfigure one of those training spaces down there as needed? Why do we need to add square foot for that? Wouldn't we just take off some of that training space if that's what was needed later?
I have to think about that. I think So in the future, there would be some remodeling project that takes away some of the training space, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I thought, rather than, because I wouldn't want to build extra space saying, well, that might be a dispatch somewhere. With the space we've got, if it was ever needed, there'd be some remodeling required, but to me, I'm not sure what needs to be changed for that. I mean, that'll be changed at the time if that ever moved over.
So right now we kind of have 2 training rooms, if you will. They're divided and can be opened up into one larger room. And I think functionally the idea is that one of those most of the time stays set up as the EOC and the other is available for training. I think if you did this and you would probably take away that one training room, And so then the EOC would double as a training room.
And that's how I've kind of envisioned
Yeah.
that process being, yeah.
Or the training room could move, one of them could move up into the shell.
If we did tell that, yeah.
Correct.
Well, true. Yeah, one of them could move up into the empty space.
Yeah, currently one of them is designated as, you know, it's a 60-person room that would be divided into 2 30-people rooms. And one of them is designated as EM/EOC training, and the other one's designated as EMS training. If either one of us need a big room, we can open up the wall and have a 60-person training session. And so, I mean, part of that idea would be if, as long as the second floor, third floor, whatever it ends up being, was there, you know, the bigger training room could go upstairs. It doesn't have to be in the party area, but the EOC does. And so the EOC would need to be maintained down there at a minimum of one of those 30-person training rooms.
No, I said the EOC and the dispatch need to stay in the basement in the hard area.
But we're looking probably at about 2 years before this is built. You know, we talk about moving dispatch in 2 years. If we have the space for it.
I'm under the assertion that that's gonna be done by the end of next year. So I guess that's basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's the decision we need to make, is if we want to plan for it now and remodel in the future. Move them over there when it's done. Or not.
Well, if you're gonna move them over there when it's done, you should be planning for that.
Yeah.
now. If you're
The
going
remodeling in the future is additional dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're going to wait and see how that plays out over the course of 5, 10, whatever years, that's a whole different story. And there, who knows, there may be dollars, grants or something available at that time to facilitate that, who knows, but I guess that's the point we need to get to. I mean, if you want to leave the way it's designed open for that thought in mind, I'm fine with that. And wait till that time, or, you know.
But also, everything electronic is changing constantly. We can say this, what they're gonna need 10, we have no idea.
Yeah, we don't.
10 years.
Yeah, we don't.
It's that,
Really, all you can do at this point in time is just kind of plan the space out.
right. That's what my thoughts are. If we're not moving dispatch right now, I don't know what the problem, you know, it could be, you know, we just have to remodel it in 10 years if it's right there. If we're gonna move it now, we need to make a decision now.
I tend to agree with that.
I like looking forward. Yes,
So
I like looking forward. Regardless, we're gonna have to change technology from it.
Wherever it is.
Yeah. On the communication side, it changes pretty rapidly and pretty drastically. So it's always about the newest and best thing. So
I know we had the advisors that the dispatch advised, the consultant, that's the word. I was saying subcontractor, because that's my mind, but I can't remember what the term was.
And what, you know, we had 2 options there, and we took the cheaper option. They just analyzed and Kyle and Tyler can correct me if I'm wrong, they analyzed the call volume and how quick the calls were answered. And they basically analyzed staffing. They didn't analyze square footage.
right.
They didn't say whether the current dispatch is big enough or not big enough. They only analyzed service and staffing. And said that we, as we kind of said before, we get great service from dispatch. They answer calls quickly, in a timely manner, and effectively. The study basically said we have about the right staffing, but we chose not to pay them to do the space study.
For me, it comes down to, you know, are we thinking about it now? If you're thinking about it now, do it now. And if we're not, seems like we do have a plan to expand if we need to down the road, and it seemed pretty evident to me that it would also probably at that point in time make sense to add the shell or the extra space, but I know we're working through that separately in terms of cost, so what that's going to look like. I'm not so sure that the dollars that we have aren't.
I know, that's why I
Yeah.
want to see what the.
Yeah.
Make sure what the costs are. That'd be interesting, Director Pete. Have you had any experience with these? Like Russell was talking about consolidating all of them away from, because I know you've been in different places, you might have more experience than others. What you've heard.
Well, good morning, sir. Good morning, members of the council, clerk, folks in attendance, Brian Pete, Riley County Police Department. In terms of that question, sir, it's so my experience has always been is where everything's been going. So when those consolidation efforts happen, they've usually been more political than anything else. So within, for example, like in Cook County or in the Chicago areas, it's disagreements between the sheriff's departments, and in one of my last places, it was the same thing, disagreements between the sheriff's departments and the bodies that govern them. And then looking to try to get that area or that type of local cooperation, and then also adding it into the fact of the regionalization concept and how are you going to best maximize a dwindling workforce in answer to that question.
I know you've been other places that you see what you've heard on those.
Well, I mean, from that, there are a lot of things that makes sense, and there's some other intangibles that are out there. But I think for the most part, the opportunity to have a backup facility is a primary point within continuity of operations planning. So looking at future federal grant dollars, things to that effect, and then just the natural operational standpoint, having that type of thing. So I'm sticking specifically to the questions you asked.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Everything we have a couple of options. We don't have to make a decision today. We can think about it and make a decision and like next week or soon. I'm sure they need it.
I kind of like the concept of the kind of designing it with both thoughts in mind, both of the backup at the start and what that could do in the future when we get to that point, or if, because that would be the other thing here too, is if you do the full on, then do you have a backup? And where's the backup?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it would be there. You would.
That's what we discussed originally.
Yeah. But everybody would congregate.
Better leave a backup in the
Police
building.
department, yeah.
It's, like I said, the backup is just
One person.
part of it's just if all the power goes out just into something, you want to have a second. That's why they're looking for that. I mean, it helps. BOCC is a big thing to have the backup, but also just as an emergency backup.
Part of the space over there now is sufficient for backup.
No, it's sufficient to do what it's doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's the obvious.
Yeah. So we want to make a decision next week or table it or?
Well, one of the things I still need to do in this process is what that shell is going to actually look like and the cost. And I don't have that information yet to kind of divvy out what, not hurrying anything, Kyle. I'm just.
I actually can speak to that if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, if you would, please.
So, we haven't fully designed the building yet, but based on where things are bidding right now and so forth. We did talk with our selected construction manager, and we think it's about $2 million for a white box shell. And that assumes HVAC systems are sized for it, and that it's got electrical stub ups and plumbing stub ups and that kind of thing, but not really any finishes. It's the extra stairway, the extra stop on the elevator, and so forth. But we think it's in the neighborhood of $2 million.
And do they have an estimate just for the building as it is without the shell space?
We're working on that.
Okay.
I think
exactly right now, but just wondered if they had some conceptual ideas yet.
Yeah, we agree with their preliminary feeling that the building is probably in the neighborhood of $500 a square foot, which I still can't get used to those numbers. That just seems like crazy talk to me, but that's what things are going for right now, this type of building. So.
We have about 4.5 minutes left. Discussion.
Big number.
Yeah.
Big number.
Kyle, if we decide to do the shell in the future, if we want to use that shell, we don't have to if we don't do the shell, we'd have to rip off the roof and move all the HVAC systems, and it would be a much costlier process to remodel or add it, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, very correct. I have done that before in projects where we've designed for a potential future floor. So far, I haven't seen any of my projects where they actually did it.
It's too costly then to do that.
Yeah. And it's very disruptive to the ongoing operations. If you don't vacate the building, you got to take the roof off.
Yeah.
I think our original estimate was what, a little north of 11 million, which is the building.
Yeah. And we have plus interest. We got a lot of interest piling up.
Yeah, plus inflation is what we're.
Yeah.
And how many you said the existing building was 29,000, like you said?
The proposed building is 29,000.
Yeah, that's what you, without the extra space, it's 29,000 square feet.
I think that includes the extra space.
The 29,000 includes the show. Right now.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the 29,000 includes the show.
That's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So actually, the original estimate included the show.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That includes a show.
29,000.
I believe it did. Yeah.
1,500,000.
Yeah, that's what I know.
I like to be proactive when it's going to take a year or two down the road. I like to be proactive for the future. And it could be next year, it could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but we'll at least have the shell there. We won't have to tear it apart, start over.
That's what the price is.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is nothing's going to get cheaper.
No.
It might stabilize potentially, but it's not going to get cheaper. It's not. So you do that now or you do that later. By some other means, it's still going to be, it just is what it is.
Yeah, the sooner we can get.
And I do know that we have discussed holding back some of our TIP. That would be over 2 years, this year and next year as well. So, those dollars should be there to
Thank you.
Should be able to cover it.
Yeah.
So do we have any kind of consensus or do we want to make it? Motions or anything?
No. For all intents and purposes, this shall probably. We've got to be creative enough to figure something out to use with it. And just given the circumstances, and that gives us some variance if we need to transition another something into that location, dispatch, whatever it may be, for the future. And we do have to think about that. So.
Yeah, but I think we added shelf space, a separate conversation from this. Like I said, either put it in there now or it can be added later, but that just have to be done then. Yeah, change things for now.
This, what we're, according to our counselor, the design decision doesn't mean that they would be moved to the consolidated dispatch would be there, but that the space would be there.
Right.
No, but again, that's what I'm saying. I don't think we need to add space for a future and to just take out more of those training rooms if that's what if it was ever done in the future.
Yeah.
New space, we have to have insurance. Oh, Russell?
The one place where the shell plays into this discussion is if you don't have it, then you're boxed in.
Yeah.
You don't have that to move training rooms up to it later.
Right.
And it kind of takes away your ability to expand dispatch in that space. So that's where the second floor would tie into this conversation. That's for clarity.
Thank you.
Would it be a good idea to ask the new director his thought of getting a new state-of-the-art dispatch center?
Sure. But it's also going to add a lot of costs.
Good. I said, yeah, still good evening, right? Or good morning. The Bryan County Police Department. Yeah, I love dangling new keys. But the one thing that throughout my experiences is and I want to preface this by saying I sincerely appreciate that the commission is looking forward and looking for ways to benefit the department. That is, I'm not lost on that. I'm extraordinarily grateful for that. But in my experiences, I've liked to keep that consolidation for a lot of the same purposes because of the communications, the leadership opportunities. There's so many different intangibles that can't be that would take a long time for me to continue to expound upon. And I will say that with all due respect to the folks that I work for within the department, I've always made the decision I think that is best, regardless of any pressure or any outside pressure. But I think that I would prefer to keep our dispatch center there. And just bring it to one basic example would be when as COVID hit and county governments and city governments were looking at, we're all doing Zoom, we're all doing Microsoft Teams, everything else like that. But there was an expression, there was a desire in a lot of places to bring in person back because there's a lot of benefit from that. And that same intangible, that same sense is a pillar, is a foundation as to what I'm looking for there. There may be other potential opportunities, I haven't had a chance to see what those different various studies were. But I think right now, I would prefer to keep our dispatch center for itself. Any questions, ma'am, of me?
Okay, thank you.
I think you were just mentioning something I think is worthy to, at least up front anyway, is a significant amount of cost, at least on the technological and communication side. Do that up front as well. Right.
Yeah.
Add it on to it, right.
It doesn't, we don't know whether it's use some of the equipment or not. If we're gonna make it new and we want to move the same stuff and make it,
I think in this case, you don't, you want all new infrastructure.
Yeah.
right.
Whether it's attached into the building for.
He brought in those pictures of somewhere he'd been that, the new. There's a lot of new stuff available.
That could be close to $1 million plus by itself.
As far as the equipment, the intent is to, and we have a IT dispatch meeting this afternoon, actually, to talk about it more, is to duplicate a lot of the stuff, because we can't have a backup dispatch center. We don't have that equipment anyway. So the backbone, the backbone of all that equipment will be duplicated up there, so that if the current dispatch center burns, blows away, floods, whatever, they can go up there and start working seamlessly. Currently 911 calls would be rerouted to Pop County, but because that's the way it's set up now. But once we got up there and you've got established, our intent is to have it to where we can flip a couple switches, call AT&T, and then have the 911 calls come to the new place. We can't have them roll over to the backup dispatch center right now because it won't be staffed. But once we get it staffed, then the intent would be that it's a full meal deal with the 911 calls we roll in and everything, especially if it's going to be a multiple day, week, month scenario where the current dispatch space isn't habitable for whatever reason. So most of that equipment will
transfer.
As far as like the consoles, we would only have 3, depending on what happened until we go down there and get salvage some and move them up there or get some others. We currently have Tyler's at six full and a couple of halves.
Yeah.
So there's potentially 8 workstations right now. Right now, we're only planning on 3 in the backup, and but the backbone of that equipment, and Corey can speak to it more. But I think I'm basically saying, right, the backbone, the base equipment's going to be there. It might be a situation of pulling in, getting hold of Harris or whoever and getting some more consoles right away. If we say, hey, we're going to be here for 6 months, if all our other long away, which we're going to be new ones anyways.
Yeah, the possibility of that facility over there going down on us is probably higher than, well, if we had a new facility that was in a safe space, then we wouldn't have that problem. It would be there.
Is existing dispatch, is that a hardened space?
No.
It's an interior space, so I would assume so, yeah.
It's about my time's life.
I cited, not, but I'm.
Yeah.
Was it built concrete block or concrete wall or something? It is.
It is concrete block, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And it's on the interior. So
I know it's on the interior, but I should know this was built in separate garden space.
I'm seeing from my RCPD friends is yes, it's.
I like the thought of having an option there. Even if we don't do it up front. We transition to the future when it becomes applicable and.
That's what I don't think we can move it right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it's plan.
And we definitely can't do it to do that and the shell both. I think that's critically important.
I would say there will be space in that basement. Yes, and then if we need training, but the shells are not, that's not a problem. I think it could be done. It can actually be done later.
We may decide in a year and a half that we wanted, so the space is there.
Probably, I'm gonna say probably not in a year and a half, but I could definitely see that being applicable 5 to 10 years, maybe. I don't know. But that will probably be past my time. So, but at least we've set it up well enough that could be easily decided.
What's its name from that?
No,
you're not going to be here for 40 years.
Well, do we need to make a decision as far as do we want them to plan the space for it at this point? For the dispatch being there? And okay, so you may have to have some.
I don't think you have to add any space, but just keep that in mind as you go through the rest of the design process.
There could be to switch that one space over at some,
okay.
So is this what we need for you to go forward, Kyle?
Yeah, that's, I guess my big questions are what are we doing about the PSAP and do you want to continue with the upper floor?
I think,
I think the upper
I
floor is
think we
gonna have
do,
to,
yes.
I mean, even if we don't have something figured out with it right now, it's gonna find a use at some point.
Yeah, it won't take long for the building to be 100% full.
Yeah.
So,
And the fact that that was already, I thought that was not included in the original, right? So the fact that's included in there, I think, and if there is a little bit of difference in cost, you know, I think we can come up with that in fee.
but we do need to have a plan for future full dispatch. Yeah, is that correct, right?
Yeah, well, but there's nothing.
There's nothing we need to do right now. We just know that when that time comes,
So
it's
that
basically there to do it.
use that space if they ever needed to, but not do anything for it right now.
Did you get that, Kyle?
Yeah, so we'll rearrange a little bit in that basement level so that the backup PSAP could be expanded into whatever we decide, probably one of the training rooms, and become the full PSAP should you ever decide to do that.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
That's good.
We have a consensus.
Yeah.
Okay.
A consensus on designing for expanding to a future full PSAP in the future and a consensus on the third floor.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Great.
Thank you, Kyle.
Brian had to be the second floor.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I keep thinking the basement's a basement, 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Still 3 floors. There's still 3 floors.
We'll just say the extra floor for now. Does that work? Okay.
At 2 stories. No.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for everyone coming and, you know, your viewpoints from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. So you're behind.
We'll catch up.
Yeah, we will, John. I'll wait till everybody clears out.
Yeah.
Okay, John, you're up.
I need to know. Good morning still, John Ellen, Public Works. And I have an opening as of today for a facility and grounds technician 2. Well, yeah. Have an empty facility and grounds technician. And current employee was supposed to be here through May or to about May, but he got called up to active duty earlier into the Space Force. I found out yesterday. Quite interesting deal.
Interesting.
I just going back to a Looney Tune cartoon.
Did they beat him up?
He might be that. He's, I think, specializing in the satellite stuff on it. So, but yeah, so we have an open position in the Parks Department for facility tech. We want to advertise for it too. Hope for the best with the ability to maybe hire for a 1 as skills and requirements are met within the applicant. It's a full-time position. It's been budgeted in the department, so we're not adding anything.
Seems to be somewhat of a common theme with these 1, 2, and 3 positions just around the board. Yeah, I mean, is there a strategy? I know we've had this discussion in other positions. Is there a strategy we should be thinking about in the short term that'll, I guess, even it out, I guess, over the course of time? I don't know what the right adjective is, but.
So I think it might be our philosophy, our internal Loudoun County needs, like recruiting philosophy. So previously, and this is what John did, because this is how we've done it, is that our
pay and position philosophy has been that, and it's written into our documentation, that if we have a 2, we are able to hire at a 1. We are able to promote to a 2 once they meet the requirements, whether it's education, endorsement, experience, whatever it is, to that position. And so we have accordingly tried to plan like our budgets to go along with that, right?
Right.
And so he has it budgeted at 2. And then the way that we restaffed those previous to really last week was that we would come to you with the highest potential cost. We come to you with the cost of a 2. Hopefully you would approve that with the understanding that we would evaluate every candidate. We would not go above that. Now, if our candidates met the requirements of a 1, we would make them to offer of a 1. Now, last week we had this, or it might have been 2 weeks ago now, to be honest. We had this conversation with Anna at the appraiser 1 and 2. And your direction at that point was to explicitly advertise 1 and 2, pay range, experience and experience. And so that is also definitely a way to do that. And it looks good. I mean, I looked at it, I looked at other options out there. I think I really like the way it's put together. And it doesn't then limit, it opens it up to saying, well, I don't have those skill sets, but I could still apply at the 1 level and I know what I get paid. So, and John and I have never had this conversation. So he doesn't even know this is like what we've done with other jobs yet. But they would have to be open, so that your department would have to be open to saying, yeah, we would hire for a 1 or a 2, depending on the skill. So if David and your team could use a 1, and with the idea of training them up, yes, absolutely, we can advertise for both.
Yeah, but if we got at the same time, we got a position that qualified for a 2, we'd rather have the 2.
Right. And that gives you the flexibility. Right. And that gives you the flexibility to look at, because this isn't just a problem that's Riley County necessarily, entry level positions or low level skill positions. It's just finding people that, 1, are willing to apply. Well, 1, that are actually there to apply. That's a whole nother story. But 2, when you get that, it gives everybody in the equation, employer and employee, an option based off of whatever that fit is in that given time. And
Well, this isn't a new challenge, right?
No, I know.
But
Yeah.
so like these technical skills have been, I mean, I used to work at a community college 20 plus years ago that this was the big area of needed people in, right? And so that's not a new thing. And we've built it into the way that our positions work. But what you said was key is it also makes the availability obvious to the applicant. Right. So the only reason I would not want to do that is if you and David would say, no, we're holding out only for a 2. We can only, right now with the mix of the people we have, we can only really, but because we have to be able.
Well, in history, we're not holding out.
Yeah.
We would really like it to. I don't want to limit ourselves there. My concern would be with that is I hire the 1 position, but come budget time, I don't want to be held. I hope to not to be held to a 1.
No. And that's what we're saying. We're giving you that. We're giving you that threshold.
The budget's come out, and you see, I build the 1.
Right.
I want to make sure that the salary availability for that position is enough for a 2.
Right. So I want to make sure that
when they do.
that's key there, because we would plan for that person to be in the position, and if it's a 1-year experience, 2-year experience, we would want to budget so that we can promote that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, in the meantime, if you have to do a 1, that actually gives you a little bit of flexibility from a personnel perspective within your budget. So it's not the benefit maybe that you want necessarily because you want your position to fill, but no, it gives you a little bit of flexibility there.
I do kind of like this a bit, the way to do that. It helps give some flexibility. If not, I'm going to get those applicants as a 2, and then I have to. If I want to offer 1 a job, I have to convince them to take a lower pay than what was shown.
Right.
And we're not then totally stuck with the 2 requirements. I have that issue, I think, with my engineering tech. These are it. You don't match them. I either can't use you or you're not going to be, you're going to get paid and we're going to have to train you to get there.
In your interview process, you may come across a candidate that checks off all the other internal boxes. It's going to be reliable. It's going to come to work. It's going to be eager to learn. It's going to be a good employee, which just doesn't match all the requirements. Yeah. But you can train them to get to all those requirements. Or if there's certifications, whatever that comes with that particular position. Probably not the case here, but supervisor or whomever can work with that individual to get them into that role. Then we can work on figuring out how to keep them.
100%.
Yeah.
We need to recruit for aptitude.
Right.
And we can train technical skills.
Right.
He's got a plethora of experts who can train technical skills.
So gives everybody in the equation. I'm just saying that's something we should think about all the way around.
I like it. And we can do that. We can definitely do that. It's just a change of philosophy, but it's a good, sounds like a good one to me.
Mhm. So you would advertise for 1 and 2?
I would. Yeah.
Simultaneous.
And that's what we'll do moving forward. I'll talk with the department heads proactively and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
And if we come to you with a higher level, we'll have specific reason why.
Right.
Okay.
I see this across the board, administrative positions, customer service positions. This to me is somewhat of a customer service position. No, they're not dealing with the customer specifically, but yeah. Okay. So we need to, let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to get there. Sorry. Do I need to state that specifically?
Yeah, motion to advertise for a one, position.
Go ahead and make that motion to fill the open facilities and grounds technician, level 2, but could also fill that at a level 1 as needed.
I have a second.
I'll just come up with better terminology later.
There's been a motion to approve the Public Works Department advertise for the open facility and grounds technician position, either 1 or 2. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you for your sign, please.
Thank you.
Rich, do you want to do your item next? It may have more public interest than mine.
Go ahead. I don't think the public's gonna be the.
I meant just online.
Yeah, no, I would go ahead. There might be somebody riveting, waiting for your presentation.
I find that a little hard to believe.
I think if somebody's got particular interest in that, they're gonna show up at the time that's listed.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm not sleeping happy. Okay, good morning, commissioners. Clancy Holman, Raleigh County Council. The item I have before you is, excuse me. Yeah. The item I have before you is a request to fill the deputy county councilor position. As the board is aware, the incumbent, I'm going to use an HR term. The incumbent for that position is going to retire on September 30th of this year. The incumbent, as the CAR indicates, in that position, and any deputy in that position, it's a deputy, has a wide variety of responsibilities that are set out in detail. And as the CAR also indicates, both Elizabeth as head of HR and I believe this is a unique position. Also because of timing and to be upfront that I've advised HR, I'll be leaving in as of January 1, 2025. So we have an opportunity to recruit for a deputy county councilor who will be in that job, given the schedule that's proposed in the CAR for some significant period of time, and has the opportunity potentially to, if they express an interest and have the skills and aptitude necessary to try and for that later opening as well. Not a guarantee, it will not be presented that way, but it's only natural. If a person's there for a period of 15 months, one might expect those 15 months might tell them absolutely no way. I like what I'm doing and I have no intention at this time. No, thank you. Because you could get both those. But we want to recognize that the primary driver here for what we're saying in terms of asking for a time of training is it's going to be essential. We've got to move fast. I think we're going to have, I'm hoping we're going to have plenty of good candidates for the position, and want an opportunity to evaluate them, interview candidates, and get somebody on board as fast as possible so we can spend those months that are indicated in the CAR to actually train the person, expose them. Because even if we end up with somebody who maybe has limited local government experience or no government experience in terms of legal practice, a good enough candidate, we can get them to the point with the incumbent's help where they can fulfill those job responsibilities.
Either that or we'll find out we made a terrible mistake and start over. So
That was not in the script.
no, that's not an option.
That's just Clancy cynicism.
Yes.
We'll get used to that after 2025.
That's exactly what it is. But we just want to be as, we want to be as careful as we can, but we need to move fast. Because, and we want to make sure that that person, they're going to have a great opportunity, really, to find out. And we'll have a great opportunity to evaluate that person for this position. With that period of time that will be necessary, we have the space available. Quite frankly, that person we anticipate would be officing, if you will, in our conference room. And probably glad at the end of the successful training period to go to a real desk rather than a giant oblong desk represented by our conference room table. And I really look forward to this. If you'll grant this opportunity for us to do as we requested in the car, I look forward to being able to have Craig, the incumbent, along with me, train the person that's brought in so that we're very comfortable that they are the right person for the job and that they know they want the job. Be glad to answer any questions you got, unless they're even close to an HR issue, in which case Elizabeth.
These are numbers issues. That's your.
And I didn't.
Yeah, it's perfect. There you go.
I did not touch those.
If they.
I counted the months, but that's all I did.
They don't add up.
Okay.
They don't.
Well, they don't.
That's why she's here.
The extra budget's a lot more, double what that is. So I mean, it's, you're saying Craig's going to be there for 9 months and the new one's going to theoretically be there for 8 months is the intent.
No, five months.
No, well, it says.
It does say prorated for $800.
Then that is a what we call a lie. No, it's a mistake. It's
We wanted,
we talked about
we
5
did want 6 months, so we put in the 6-month training period, but once we laid out the calendar. So the numbers are there for 6 months, but once we laid out the calendar, I realistically think it's gonna take us 2 months to
Right.
collect and evaluate. So we really are left with 5 months if we get them started on the 1st of May.
Well, but again, you've got. But the new person will be here for 8 months, right?
No, the
new person be only 5.
No.
Well, before they get 5 months of training.
In a year, they would have 5 months of training and they would continue through the end of the year. So he leaves September 30th.
Right.
So they would start May 1st to December 31st.
Sorry, I was misunderstood.
But you're getting 3 months of that back when Craig retires.
Right. No, but that's what they show that the current one will be there for 9 months and the new person will be there for 8 months. So they overlap for 5.
Right, you have got that correct.
Okay,
They overlap.
but then you throw this extra 6-month training period.
That's what I was trying to.
Well, it's not additional, so that's how much that costs, just so, and I find this confusing as well. So I'm trying my best to explain that we have budgeted a salary of this total compensation. So right now, we have in our budget 230,000, about 752.
Right.
We expect our current incumbent to be here for 9 months, which means this year we will use $173,064 for Craig's salary and his benefits. That new deputy estimated, right? We can only estimate the cost.
Yeah.
So estimating that, we would hire them in for 8 months, that actual cost would be $129 for this entire year, the whole time that they would be here.
All right.
So the overlap of the 6 months is this $97,000.
But then,
So if we take away what we have budgeted, the 230, you take out Craig's amount of 173, and then you take out how much the overlap is, we end up.
but you don't take out you take out their whole amount because you're also paying them for the 173 and 129 are what our new costs are going to be. And that's 70,000 over, not 40,000 over.
Okay. I don't have a calculator for me, and you're good at, you are very analytical about math, and so.
But and that's what is the
and
6
I don't know
month
if you're seeing
training
that
period
too.
doesn't make any difference. We're paying the existing 173, and then the new one estimated 129, that's 302. So that's, and existing budget is 230, so it's 72. You took the 997.
I did take the 97.
If you take the 97, you're ignoring those extra 3 months after Craig leaves.
Yeah, you're right, and so that's a training period only, yes,
Right.
that month there is a training.
So it needs to be just the top 2 taken from it, so it's The
For the
extra
total
cost
year.
is almost 72,000.
Okay, so for the total year, that's the
Yeah.
cost, yeah, the cost difference of having that training. You're right, you are right. In the logic you just explained, that budgetary cost is the training, that training
Right.
period.
The
cost.
training is part of the 129.
It is 8 months, yeah. Yeah. Yes, you're right. So I did pull it out just for the cost of the training.
Yeah,
So-
that'd be correct.
Yeah, so thank you.
And then you have that in your budget? Or do we need to?
No,
No, we do not.
no, he has in his budget $230,000.
Right, and I meant in other, if there was other cushion, because,
Yeah.
you have so much extra money in your budget.
So
You had less.
So much. Every time we pare it down, like every department. We
After
all
you
those
whittle you down to
instructions.
nothing, you don't have 70,000
No, we don't go down to nothing.
in your, you don't have that cash in your drawer somewhere.
When he lets Jill and Janet go, he will.
I wouldn't.
I'm not sacrificing them to bring on a deputy.
Yeah, that's
So
the
that
reason
would just
for the
come out
additional.
of general fund.
That's the
Yeah.
request. Yeah, the money would have to come out of the general fund because it is
Right.
not in the council budget. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
you're welcome that I did none of this.
yeah, no, I mean, you're,
Well, I don't
it's no
know.
better.
I had questions on it, so I assumed it was yours.
And we
Yeah.
will need to get the revised numbers for the board.
Yeah,
That way
right.
They know
Sure.
exactly.
The
the
total
additional.
ask, he's right. This request is.
It's
literally
around
just-
72.
That's why for the vote, I think I'm gonna just table it and
Okay,
have you come back.
Yeah.
And we have the full numbers and we can.
We'll come back with the real.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Sorry about that.
Greg's number is right, so we'll get to that. Yeah.
Once again, if you're going to read these documents, I'm not presenting.
He tells me that all the time.
Thank you for raising that though.
Yeah, and the training period, that's what we're so focused on. So we're trying to get that training period. So yes, that specifically costs us an extra $40,000, but the whole year is the budget. Yeah, I understand.
Well, for the moment, let's get the right numbers on the table and have the right discussion based off of that. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move that we table the recommendation to open the deputy county counselor's position and to a later date.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to table the recommendation to open the deputy county council position. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
No.
One more item.
Oh, thanks, Lindsay.
Sure. I think I'm not getting there yet.
Yeah, no. Thank you, office. So, good morning, still barely commissioners. Before you are the commissioner redistricting adjustments as agreed to by the commissioners by consensus at the last meeting. We're hoping you reviewed those and it has accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. If not, let us know. We can go back to the drawing board. This was done by myself and staff and GIS department, did the mapping, which they did a great job. Quick turnaround time. That's why we get on the agenda so quickly. That way we can get one thing off of our to-do list. And so I think it's outlined as directed by the commissioners. If not, let us know. And if you're happy with it, accept the motion for the redistricting. I think it's an excellent job in getting the numbers very close, about as close as you could do without doing major changes. And that's always my hesitancy is the commissioners won't hear about it, but when there's changes, we hear about it. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So the less impact we have on voters, I'm always for, and this is very minimal.
Yeah, the third district is still a bit low, but it's the one that has been growing quite a bit. So I'm sure it'll even out. That's small.
Well, it's only 300.
Yeah, there's
$360. There's always going to be $60. That's closer than.
That's close, about as close as we can.
0.5%. I mean, I just don't think you can get it
Yeah,
perfect. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to then go within your precinct to get it completely right and then go street to street or make it like one side of the street or the other. That's just
Somebody moves out, somebody moves in with 3 kids and all of a sudden.
Right. And we're very transient in that regard, each cycle.
That population numbers are what's presented to you are not what they are today.
No.
Right, that's what
It's from the 2020 census.
that's 2 years ago.
And nobody's really for sure if that's actually truly the number anyway, so, but.
Yeah, it was a rather challenging census through a pandemic.
Yeah,
I don't know,
But that's the best,
but I know the one at Riley.
that's the best that we've got to go with, commissioners, and all we're allowed to use by law.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, I have no issues with it. Obviously, it puts another 2,200 or close to that in mind. I'm not, that's fine with me. I think that balances out evenly. You've got the trade-off is we've got much more of the city as whole, so we got the population density, you've got the square area to cover. So those are the offsets with this, and it doesn't really change the bounds of what we need to do on the rural side, didn't change at all. So we're still representing the same amount of people there. So
And I do like the way it's, broken up between rural and city.
Yeah.
So, unlike some other counties, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that. It's not that big of a shift.
Anyway, move to approve the new district. Districting lines for district, commissioner district.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2023 Raleigh County Commission redistricting as presented for District 1, 2, and 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. Thanks for your work on that as well. Yeah,
I do have a couple of questions on that. When does that take effect?
immediately. Immediately.
Immediately?
Yeah,
Okay.
staff will go in and start making those changes on the voter registration system. We have to change those
Right.
road district lines, so that takes a little time, and then they'll triple checking it, but yeah. I mean,
Do
as
the
soon as-
registered voters in those locations get notified as well? Okay.
I haven't slept with this movie. My son's going to get moved.
No.
Not from my district.
Okay.
You remember first year.
Okay.
Appreciate your work on that.
Yeah. Appreciate
Your review of it.
I know that was not
Not easy.
an easy process for reasons you've already stated, so.
Well, that concludes our regular business today. Is there anything else?
But we just, like I said, just for the discussion, I'd gone down and saw we didn't have any lights. Why didn't we have Christmas lights?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would have swore, Scap, that the Carnegie building was a flat roof. It's not. I don't know, in my mind it had. And we met with the guy from Rothwell, and he said, and especially, I knew the courthouse would be a problem, but it's that he would have to rent a lift to come in to put them out, rent a lift and then take them down. We have no outside electrical on any of those buildings.
Yeah.
That the others have made adjustments. Renting a lift just by itself was going to be probably $2,500 each time. So it's twice at 5,000 plus buying the lights, plus them, plus us running some electric somewhere. We're talking $7,000 to $8,000. And it might be a little less than next year, but it's going to be almost that $7,000 to $8,000 every year, which is, and how they do it right now is all those existing buildings that flat roof, they haul a ladder with them, they get up onto the first building and take a ladder with them. They get up the next building higher, they climb up on that and drag the ladder and go back, and they just work their way down the thing. And Wareham has the elevator has a roof access for the ones up there, but the rest of them, they just start at one end of the block and just drag the ladder with them and run down there. So, and plus, if they brought one of those lifts in there, then it's chance of tearing up the landscaping because we've got irrigation and all that. It's just
break and everything else on
that work. He was looking at maybe there's 2 trees. For some reason they put the lights up this downtown puts the lights on one easement tree in front of the courthouse. And there's 2 over there next to Carnegie. They don't do. He's gonna ask them what, see if they can do that. The one thing Jerry suggested, he said if we wanted to put lights, if we put lights inside. Just,
on the window.
around the window. We wanted to do that.
I actually thought, and I'm just going back to Operation Green Light there, so you can just get some colored lights. Just basically plant into the ground and you can just kind of shoot them up.
And then John said, you get one of those
lights
that show all the stars.
Yeah.
don't think that's too good on there.
Rather than the electric problem, because I was thinking, what about, you see some of those that are stuck in the ground, to kind of outline certain areas too, could be another option, because I knew you had an interest in doing some things.
Inside, yeah, and I was sort of, why don't we do it that? Well, now I know why, because it costs a lot of money, just because of the range.
And we had never looked into the cost before the commission before, just didn't have any interest.
Yeah, I would want to say we spent. And we had like a $5,000 budget with people that donated on the Operation Moonlight, and it was less than $1,000 for the lights.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'd have some labor costs involved in that, and we would have to come up with a electrical source, but we can probably string an extension cord or something for each one of those to make it work.
Yeah.
We can kind of piece it together.
We've got maybe think of something like that.
I think that would be.
Like I say, the lights around the room.
Lights around.
Work. And when I was talking to the guy, we were both, the guy in Rossville who does it, said, yeah, the forecast, I don't know if you can get there, but Carnegie shouldn't be, and he was the same way. We came up there and went, oh, it's not a flat place. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Just because of the way they built this square building. So, yes.
If you're done.
I'm done.
Corey had an update on the CASA and the space and wanted to make sure the board is aware of where we're at. He's met with the district court.
Yes. An update for everyone, as our correspondence had been and CASA agreed, and so did we, that their last day would be the 27th. So that was last Friday. Okay. We moved forward with finalizing the technology part of their transition, data, emails, those kind of things. I did look through the office and found quite a bit of materials left. Emailed Carson and I believe their deputy or second in charge. I don't have her name correctly. And
Jennifer.
Yeah. And anyway, Jennifer, yes. With copies of Ridge, Clancy, and so forth on there, including district court. And our response was, what's left, we are agreeing to abandon, and Riley County can do with that as they wish. I've met with district court because some of the items are on our inventory that are district courts. So items they bought and provided for them, might be file cabinets, furniture, and those kind of things. We did identify the Riley County property based on inventory, and we know what those items are. What is left then is quite a bit of materials, desks, trash, chairs, and so forth that are not on any inventory at all. Some usable, some not. But I wanted to update you on that. And I suppose get a consensus and make sure you're aware that to continue to move forward and empty the space out, that we, whomever that would be, would identify this is usable, this is not. Go to trash, probably work with Public Works to get items hauled out.
To put on the auction, put them on the auction when the Public Works.
So that's why I'm bringing this up, is yes.
And what's going to determine what we need to do with it? Well, first of all, the trash is easy. It's true trash. We can beat that argument. If somebody says we threw away something and should have gone to auction. Anything that the courts, my understanding, the court's going to take that back?
That's correct. So just as any other department has, they're going to review it all and look at it. Here's something they need. If they don't need it because it's on inventory and a property item that's been tracked, then they will offer that up to actually all of Riley County. And is this yes, like you've seen through some of the other emails. There are.
And if nobody takes it?
If nobody takes it, then those items usually then tend to go to auction. They are on our inventory, and we have processes in place for that and the tracking of that. What we would have here would be materials that are not in inventory. Now, granted, anything usually under $100 does not go in inventory. So there are some small furniture items, but there are some large tables up there still and some various items. But I want the group to know as a whole here and obviously Clancy and all of you to understand and make a decision that are we okay to move forward or what the right process. And Clancy, I need to cut you off there.
No, you cut me off. The key is just, to me, the safe thing to do anything that nobody wants, but which may be usable, just put it in the auction.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I,
that seems the way to go.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wouldn't do that.
but I didn't go up there after the meeting Monday. Rich picked me up and went through to see. And then like I said, there's a lot of desks and stuff. There's a lot of.
Yeah, yeah, there are. I met with Lana this morning to go over, check inventory, mark the what's theirs. I'm meeting with some of the other court staff to show, and then they'll do with what they want to. We know what the items remaining are. Probably need to get with Public Works or somebody. Those, if you saw when you went up in the hallway, those large round tables.
Oh,
okay, well, those are Riley County property, and so there's 6 of those. So those large round tables, maybe that's Potter Hall, where I'm not sure where that might need to go, but those are actually on inventory and so forth. But then it's, you know, a giant box of water bottles.
Water bottles. Yeah,
Yes.
they didn't take any of those.
You know,
there's a baby carriage.
right, the back corner, we have found 7 old laptops that we will dismantle and destroy. I don't believe that that should be fair for an auction item there. We would do a disposal of. They are very, very old and would not serve a function. An old printer up there that we've determined is not usable either. So there are some electronics that we would go through our disposal process. So it's an unusual situation, and I wanted to make sure I'm bringing it up to her.
I think we can save
I'm
some
a little
money.
frustrated on that
Okay.
because
It's been that way constantly with that
it's been weird.
organization.
yeah,
It's a constant.
Yes, sir.
we're going to be using our own staff. There's a certain amount of time and effort involved in that. There's a hard cost to that, or
Sure.
a cost of them not being able to do their regular functions. That needs to be taken into consideration if all possible. I'm sorry.
Point in time, it's just better to cut your losses and let's move on. You know, it's been nonstop frustration, but the good side, I think we can save some money and tell Russell and David we have their new office furniture.
For what?
Their new office
Well,
furniture.
not just that, Rich. We have some old computers that are. You can take back their new stuff.
Let David and Russell know if you would, Corey.
All maintain silence.
There is a lot up there, but we'll just take it to auction on. Yeah, it's as many times as we've had to deal with that organization, but just time to move on, get done.
Yeah, there were some file cabinets up there that are locked. Are they still there?
That's correct. The file cabinets that are in there on that side,
Yeah,
they are district court's file cabinets.
they're gonna take that, because I was worried about the things inside of it.
Yeah, well,
So they're going to see if any of their other offices within the court system needs them. If not, then they will be offered to the rest of Riley County, if any offices need them. So we'll go through those processes as we've done. But it just need to be made aware there's quite a bit that's just trash. And then there are items that not a court possession, not Riley County, that we will also go through the processes with. We do have in writing, as Rich and Clancy are aware, and I think it's stated clearly that what's left, Riley County can do with that.
Just file and document.
Yeah, and you said offer to the rest of Riley County. You're talking often offer to the rest of Riley County government.
Riley County
The offices.
government, yes, sir. If
Okay,
it's
I don't want
not-
to
if
mishear
it-
that.
If it's not an item that anybody within Riley County government would use, then it would go to auction.
Where everybody will get a
Where
chance.
everybody will get a
Public.
chance. Yes, sir. Appreciate the clarification. Correct.
Including those computers destined for public work.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Corey.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
all your work on
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
That was fun.
Nothing else.
All morning.
Anything
No,
else?
good. I don't have anything else.
Okay, well, then let's motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the February 2nd meeting of the Riley County Commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the February 2nd meeting of